Welcome to the complete 300 days in my Minecraft horse survival world, the full movie. In this world, I am starting with nothing but my bare hands and trying to build and run a horse ranch from scratch. Sounds simple. Think again. This is me somehow surviving 300 days of whatever Minecraft decides to throw at me. There were a lot of obstacles, some planned, most not. This video is going to be that entire journey, combining all the parts of the series into one full story, from day 1 all the way to day 300. And if you see any of the custom swim horse coats that you might like in this video, or want to download the final world build, you'll find everything on my Ko-Fi shop linked below. With that, let's go back to where it all began. Day 1, in fact, wasn't about my horse dreams at all. It was about not dying. So I spawned in, punched some trees, crafted the basics, and gathered whatever resources I could. When I found a rocky mountain face, I decided that was home sweet home and dug straight in, upgrading to stone tools and swatting away a few nosy mobs that got a little too close for comfort. But as the sun started sinking, panic set in because I had no bed. I searched hills, forests, everywhere, not a single sheep in sight. So when night fell and a skeleton nearly took me out, I did the only logical thing left, buried into the ground like a terrified little mole and waited for morning. However, day 2 started off with immediate success. I crawled out of my little hole and was greeted by sheep. Sweet, innocent, unlucky sheep. So with the wolf finally in hand, I crafted a bed, gathered some extra wood, and threw together a temporary base. The rest of the day, I fully entered my hunter-gatherer era. You did not want to be a mob crossing my path that day. I know, kinda harsh coming from someone who's vegetarian in real life, but Minecraft doesn't exactly have tofu, okay? By nightfall, I'd even started mining and got my first real iron weapons, plus a shield. Not bad for my second day in the wild. Today was for exploration. So after crafting a backpack for extra storage and moving out, I found a quiet beach and on it a lone wolf. I still had 2 bones from my first night and figured maybe fate was throwing me a win. It wasn't, because 2 bones later she looked at me with the same enthusiasm as the squid drifting nearby. Still, I wasn't leaving her, so I built a quick pen to temporarily kidnap her and set out that night on a skeleton hunt. Luck was on my side because I gathered more bones and even mined enough iron for a full set of armor. Tomorrow, that wolf was definitely becoming my dog. At sunrise, I headed back for the wolf, and this time we had success. She tamed instantly and turned into the cutest borzoi thanks to the Better Dogs resource pack. I didn't have a training tree just yet, so customization would have to wait, but I named her Pebbles since I had found her on a beach after all, which is kind of an odd spot for a wolf to be hanging out. With Pebbles at my side, I continued searching for a place to start the homestead. Along the way, I spotted a beehive, hoping for honey. I smacked it, which woke up a swarm of very angry bees. After a couple of probably well-deserved stings, I learned you actually need a campfire and silk touch to do it properly. Oops. Still recovering from my unintentional bee crime, I wandered into a stunning cherry blossom valley, complete with a small lake. It was peaceful, pretty, and perfect. I had just found my future base. Day 5, I created a rough layout of the ranch in my mind. I figured I'd have to start with my home, seeing as a bed with a couple of wooden planks overhead didn't count for much of one. So I picked a cute cottagecore tutorial off of YouTube for my build. This way I knew exactly the materials I needed to gather. So that day I set out to gather as much resources as possible. I basically spent the whole day, and seeing as I didn't have much for a base, night 2 in the forests and in mines, gathering everything I could. I was on such a grind, I even stumbled about Cantazarite, which would help me later on turn my future vanilla horses into majestic swim horses. I was so busy, I hadn't even realized day 6 had suddenly come about. Unfortunately, thanks to the darkness and twisting tunnels, I did find myself in a bit of a predicament here, meaning lost. After a mild panic, I was able to get myself safely out as I spotted a ravine filtering some light into the cave. Safe to say, I quickly learned the hard way to light the torches on my path so I could retrace my footsteps next time. Reuniting with Pebbles back at camp, I started the foundation of my house. My attempt to work through the night was abruptly cut short, unfortunately, so I quickly did the bare minimum to give me a safe place to sleep for the meantime. After giving my house a proper 4 walls, I conquered the caves once more in search of resources to finish the foundation of my house. It was going great until I was suddenly rushed by a storm of mobs. My attempts to fight back were futile, and I had to make the walk of shame back to the cave to collect my lost materials. After pulling an all-nighter, officially gathering the resources I needed, I continued building up my house and managed to get it to a point I was quite proud of. Decorating would have to come later. With the house foundation and exterior complete, I was able to finally relax by the campfire and cook Pebbles and I both some chicken as we watched the sunset. Day 9, as I was gathering materials for my interior decorating phase of home building, I discovered a nearby forest where I came upon a mare and foal. Although I had no place for them, these were the first horses I had come across in all my endeavors. I mean, come on, I was practically forced to take them home with me. I kidnapped these 2 from the wild and carted them back to my base. I named the little one Bambi and the mare Willow. I built a makeshift pen to keep them safe. I crafted a saddle for Willow and tried my luck at taming her. After many failed attempts at taming this girl, I finally had success. Day 10, I wanted to take a break from the usual grind of build, mine, rinse, and repeat, so I decided to take my new horse out on a little ride to explore the neighboring area, where I came upon this quaint village. I was actually able to trade with some of the villagers and sneakily looted some of their chests. This is also where I found my new best friend. In all my excitement of seeing the first cat, I rushed towards her, which is when she fled. I had a very hard time finding her as she was a quick little one, but I did not give up until I saw her again. This time, I took out some raw salmon and tactfully waited for her to approach me. One thing led to another. Meet Boots, named after her adorable little white markings. With my new friend by my side, I noticed the sun was setting and we were still a ways from home, so I decided that I would bunk with one of the unconsenting villagers for the night, just to be safe. The next day came, and with my new friend in tow, we made the journey back to the farm. I finally got around to mostly finishing my house's exterior, which took entirely the whole day. As my hunger slowly declined, I realized that I probably should be putting my efforts into something more fruitful, like starting my farm or gathering cows and chickens for food and resources, but quickly brushed that thought aside as I continued working on decorating the interior of my house well into the next morning. This rolled well into day and night 12, and while I still wanted a bit more decor, I figured I had what I needed for the time being. This bunch of bricks was really starting to feel like a home. Okay, now it is actually time to get serious about farming. So I set up a big garden and spent the whole day, night, and the next day organizing, plowing the fields, and planting away. By the end of the day, I was super pleased with how far along I had gotten and very happy with my little farm. I planted timothy, alfalfa, and oat seeds for my future swim horses, wheat for my future farm animals, carrots, beetroot, potatoes, and some melons for yours truly. And just a few paths later, I was officially a farmer. I woke up with this gnawing feeling in my stomach that I had completely been neglecting the very thing I was doing this challenge for. So when I checked on my horses, it was to my shock that little Bambi was not so little anymore. It had been days since I'd seen him after all, so with much more ease than his mother, surprisingly, I was able to tame him and took him for a short ride to celebrate. Unfortunately, playtime was over and it was time to get back to work. Next order of business, creating a doggy talents training treat to customize my little pup Pebbles, who had become something out of a horror movie with the Mizuno's 16 resource pack. Fortunately, once I gave her the retreat, Pebbles returned to normal, and instead of the gorgeous Borzoi, I opted for her to become this sandy beagle that I thought suited her name much better. I also realized I didn't have the Better Cats resource pack enabled, so Boots got an immediate upgrade too. Day 16, it was time to get serious about my animal farm. I started with the most useful animals first, so I got to work on a chicken coop and managed to mostly finish it. However, I kept running out of materials, so it did take a while, but nonetheless was able to scramble to a finish before nightfall. Now I just needed to abduct some nearby wandering chickens. So using a wagon I made, I went on a little trip picking up lost tiny chickens with the promise of all the seeds they could eat. Lesson is, don't take candy from strangers' kids. Even though they were forcefully moved, I think they were quite happy with their new home, and I immediately bred them to grow my chicken empire. Now this morning, I was hit with the realization that it was high time I transformed my little vanilla ponies into bigger, faster swim horses. To do this, I needed the Kentazerite potion, but first I needed a brewing stand, and to craft one, I needed a blaze rod. Normally that would mean venturing into the nether to fight blazes, but thankfully, Swem has an alternative path. Instead of going to the nether, I could craft a blaze rod using Kentazerite, but it required one catch, an ender pearl. That meant it was time for an enderman hunt. I prepared my weapons, waited until nightfall, and carefully stalked the plains and forests where the endermen usually roam. But between the creepers sneaking up, skeletons sniping from a distance, and zombies trying to crash the party, I did spend most of the night dodging arrows and explosions instead of finding endermen. By sunrise, my armor had taken severe damage. My nerves were shot, and I hadn't seen a single enderman. But new day, new plans, so I repaired my armor, restocked on food, and decided to change biomes. Maybe the desert would have better luck. As night fell, I built a little sandstone lookout and waited patiently. At first, it was more of the same. Just as I was about to give up again, I caught the faint purple flicker of teleportation in the distance. Finally, I locked eyes with the enderman, and the fight was on. It was a little chaotic, but I managed to lure it into my homemade booby trap, which was just my boat. Then I landed the final hit and watched as the ender pearl dropped to the ground. 2 nights, 1 near-death experience, and a lot of armor used up. Mission complete. With the blaze rod, I got myself a brewing stand and made the Kentazerite potion for both Bambi and Willow. As can be seen, they became nearly unrecognizable here. I retamed these two and then whipped out some redstone and lapis I had left over from my mining adventures, which allowed me to cycle through all of their coats, starting with Willow. I eventually landed on one of my custom coats that you can pop over and snatch for yourself on my Ko-Fi store, but unfortunately was too indecisive to land on one for little Bambi. So until I could get back into the mines, he was going to be stuck as this liver chestnut Pintalusa. So, slight oversight problem on my part. Swem horses require actual care. Like, not just stick him in a tiny pen and call it a daycare, but special foods, water, room to graze and roam, the whole 9 yards. So, day 21, I built out their pens even more. As Swem horses need sweet feed and hay, I also got some timothy from my garden to give them bales, and crafted some sweet feed to put into their grain feeders, along with an in-ground water trough, which was quite a pain to fill up, as it felt like I had to make 1,000 trips to the lake to fool both of theirs up, and they kept sucking it down like in a blink of an eye. This was going to be a very temporary setup, and my next big plan was going to be making something far more permanent for them. Now that I was able to not worry about having the horses wasting away, or dogs, I was able to scour the caves for redstone so I could make Bambi my dream horse. I spent the whole day finding anything but redstone. Fortunately, I got luckier on day 23. 2 days and hundreds of torches later, I used my redstone to pick Bambi's coat. I wasn't finding one I wanted, and as I thought I would need to make yet another trip to the mines, on my very last redstone, he transformed into a beautiful buckskin, which is what he was originally, so it was perfect. Oh, and by the way, I also made this coat, and you can get it for yourself once again on my Ko-Fi if you want a Bambi of your own. It was time to get serious about this barn build. I'd been saying for days that Willow and Bambi needed something more than a glorified dirt pen. I just needed to make it happen. So the next 3 days were spent logging and mining and flattening the area for my next project, the horse barn. Like, a lot of flattening, guys. It was incredibly tedious, and by day 28, the land was unrecognizable. But not everything can go to plan, right? So just as I started making the foundation the next day, the sky went storm dark and chaos ensued. The rain started pouring, lightning was flashing in front of me, and these gliding phantoms started trying to take me out of nowhere. So I took Boots and Pebbles inside to get warm, and unfortunately had to cut the day short because no building is worth getting struck down by phantoms and lightning. By morning, the storm finally passed, so first things first, I checked on everyone, although I felt slightly guilty walking past Willow and Bambi's enclosure with, well, no real overhead enclosure. They just have had to endure all the elements as they have no cover, which was further motivation to get this barn done. Today's mission: lay the foundation. I changed the layout like 3 times, finally decided to just take inspiration off of someone else's build, so by sunset, the front to the barn was laid out, leaving room to expand in the future. Today was entirely in the details, so I got to work taking a spin on the design I was taking inspiration from, as these weren't your average vanilla horses, so I had to go bigger. The frame was starting to take shape though. Day 32, I finally finished working on the front of the stables after so much indecisiveness and rearranging constantly. The next day, it was back to having my nose on the grindstone, and I finally managed to get half the foundation of the stables done. It was actually starting to form into a somewhat cohesive blob of blocks. Day 34 pretty much just copy and pasted this to the other side. Eventually, I got around to finally making the roof with the help of Pebbles and Boots supervising the whole time. Meanwhile, these phantoms were circling overhead like they were waiting for me to mess up or to attack me. Thankfully, they kept their creepy wings to themselves, and the second the roof was done, I bolted inside like my life depended on it, which it kinda did. The barn was finally ready for my 2 semi-neglected horses. So I gathered their gear, said good riddance to their old dirt pen, and then it was time for the grand finale, moving them in. Everything was perfect, or at least it looked perfect, but staring at them in their little stalls, I realized something was missing. So I decided to attach their stalls with a pasture so they could wander, graze, play, and just be actual pixelated horses. It did take some trial and error and a questionable amount of fence building, but it felt like the right move. By nighttime, everything looked way more put together. I stood there admiring this masterpiece, feeling all proud and accomplished, and that's when a creeper politely tapped me on the shoulder with a boom. The barn was finally down to all the tiny finishing touches, the things that really make it feel real. And after what felt like a million trips, hauling water to and from the lake, adding an auto watering system officially went on the old bucket list. I also hung stall plates for Bambi and Willow, and suddenly their stalls felt like true homes for them. I was all hyped to set up the new watering system for the horses until I realized Pebbles was missing. So I sprinted to the barn and found her flat on the ground, hunger literally in the negatives. Yep, while trying not to neglect the horses, I ended up neglecting my own dog. So I scooped her up with a bone, wore her like a hat all the way home to protect her from monsters, and then learned she needed a dog bed to heal faster. Problem was, I couldn't find a way to get her off my head, so I had to relog. Luckily, she popped off, pushed her onto the bed, little hearts appeared, and all was well again. Moral of the story today: don't forget to feed your pets. After that whole disaster, I wanted to be done making 10 trips a day to the lake just to water the horses. So I burned my last ender pearl and set up what I hoped would be a genius automatic watering system. 1 block of water and a couple of spigots later, boom, I had the best time saver unlocked. Well, almost. Turns out the whole thing was useless without a trough, and the trough needed kelp. And guess what I did not have? kelp. I also got inspired to finally start riding my newly improved horses on day 40. But of course, new and improved horses require new and improved tack. Basic saddles just don't cut it. I needed to craft proper swim gear, which meant a bridle, saddle pad, girth, leg wraps, breast collar. Yeah, it turns out there's a lot more to it than just saddle. So I set out to a beach with lots of kelp because I needed refined leather for this project, and to make refined leather, you need kelp. This way, I could knock out 2 birds with 1 stone. Back home, I stayed up all night cooking up my kelp. Eventually, I had enough refined leather to start crafting, and their new tack and water system was becoming a reality. Luckily, by day 41, Pebbles was finally back to her old happy self. That morning, I finished crafting the troughs and the horse's new tack. I soon had a full matching adventure tack set that looked incredible on the horses. Of course, the first thing I wanted to do was test it out. Only problem, I had nowhere to actually ride and try it safely. Guess that meant my next project was clear. So I rode out on Bambi to scout the perfect spot for my next big project, the horse arena. The land across the lake looked perfect, right up until a whole pillager mob popped out like I trespassed on their front lawn. 1 crossbow bolt later, I was sprinting home with Bambi and 1 heart left, vowing never to poke the angry neighbors again. Once I recovered, I headed back peacefully this time and spent the rest of the day flattening the area. Half the arena was carved out and starting to take shape. By sunset the next day, the whole arena footprint was finished, with no further run-ins with the pillagers, might I add, for now, at least. The next day, I rode out to a beach, found a dream sand supply, and went full maniac with a shovel. I came home with tons of sand and left the beach with, well, noticeably less beach. With all the sand a girl can need, I spent the day filling the giant arena hole. I know, very glamorous work. Had a second run-in with the pillagers, but I lived to tell the tale, so decided to just call a truce for the night. Giving my now arch nemesis the chance to clear out, the next morning I wrapped up the last of the filling, finally leveling that arena-sized hole for good. With solid ground at last, Project Arena was entering its next phase. Not the phase where I get repeatedly killed by pillagers, mind you, but it was officially time to start on the outer fencing. Which meant a mining day. I went searching for granite and spent way too long finding absolutely nothing, just tunnels and disappointment, until I finally hit the jackpot. While I was down there, I grabbed a bunch of iron too, because you can never have enough iron. Then I started my new job as a leaf trimmer for the day. I sheared birch leaves for greenery and wood for the arena fencing, and stocked up on everything I need for my outer wall. By the end, my inventory was full and the arena build was ready to begin. And finally, crafting day! I took all the supplies I'd gathered and turned them into the materials for the arena. Nothing was placed just yet, just hours of tediously prepping, stacking, and getting everything ready for the big build. The arena was finally locked and loaded. Now it was time to turn dreams into reality. So I built the full outer fencing. By sunset, the arena was pretty much framed and officially ready for what comes next. Hopefully not war with the pillagers. Turns out, what comes next was war with the pillagers. Every time I tried to work on decor, they showed up like the world's worst welcoming committee. Seriously had me rethinking the placement of this entire arena. Progress was very minimal. Stress was very high. By day 53, after way too many interruptions and a few close calls, I finally finished the fencing and the lighting and all the decor around the arena for real. My horse training center was complete. The peace treaty with the pillagers, on the other hand, still questionable. Using Jahara's show jumping pack catalog, I looked through all the jumps and obstacles and picked out the ones I actually wanted in my arena. There were so many options, but I finally made the jumps that were gonna make this arena more than just a sand pit. I had to take a few intermissions throughout the day to do some XP farming because this required a lot of naming of blocks. Layout day. This day was much less fun than I thought and more confusing and overwhelming because I had no idea where to place anything. So I just started placing planks to imagine my course, trying to map out something that made sense, only to rearrange it over and over and over again. More tweaking here. I shifted jumps, adjusted spacing, reworked the flow until the course finally started to feel right to me. There were lots of tiny changes, but big progress. After several days of pure rearranging everything, suddenly it all clicked into place. I finished the full layout with tons of cute jumps and little exercise sections here and there, turning the arena into a real training space instead of just a sandy rectangle. Day 58, I wanted to reap the rewards of all my hard work, so I spent the day playing with the ponies over the new jump course. At first, they weren't having it. At second, also weren't having it. Even though it was a struggle, I had so much fun just taking the day off to really enjoy them and bond. I woke up on this moody morning feeling a little hungry, so I went to grab a snack and realized I had run out of food. In all of my excitement of building and creating, I'd completely neglected something fairly important, my survival. So I spent the morning collecting eggs, sending a few chickens back to spawn, and then replenishing the flock. And by day 60, let's just say I was getting a little tired of chicken. So I began rounding up the neighboring cows and sheep, although not sure Bambi approved of all his new roommates. Now it was time to finally plan the animal farm expansion. I found a tutorial online and spent the day diving headfirst into gathering materials for this animal farm. I needed wood, and more wood for the whole build. I almost ran out of space, but luckily had my backpack because in Minecraft, hoarding is survival. Gathering bled into the next day, and soon I turned my mountain of materials into all the blocks, fences, and other bits and bobs I need, so nothing would slow me down during the actual build. My entire inventory looked like a hardware store exploded. I immediately got to work laying the groundwork for the farm the next day. I cleared out a flat patch of land near the horse barn. I also marked where I would be building as well, so it would be easier for me the next day. By day 65, the skeleton of my future animal paradise was actually taking shape, and I was more excited than ever to fill it in over the next few days. And these next few days were purely build mode. I spent every waking moment laying out the rest of the animal farm. And slowly, that flat patch of land was turning into a cozy farm. By day 68, my animal paradise was really coming together. That's when a wandering trader showed up, unfortunately, with the usual useless traits. So, dealt with him, survived an intense llama spit attack, and walked away with 2 newly rescued llamas. Not sure if they serve a purpose, but they sure are cute, so had to have them. Many days of hard work later, I finally put the finishing touches on, and voila! It was time to move the farmyard into their new home. So here's the official tour of the barn. You come in, there's like this big common space. It's a little pasture area if I ever want to let the critters out. We've got our lovely llamas, some sheep, cows, our piglets, and to be determined right there. And you walk in, you have this little workspace, and if we go up the ladder here, we have this little roomy area that you can stay in. It's a bit of a hay loft, and then we have lots of storage for all the animals, and yeah, that's pretty much it, but it's pretty cozy, and I think the animals are gonna love it. I woke up in the hay loft, 2 pigs squealing and cows mooing. Basically my new alarm clock. The day was pure farm life, breeding the new pigs, cows, and sheep, collecting what I needed, and keeping the cycle going. I chose 2 lucky cows to be milk cows. By sunset, the whole place felt like a real, thriving homestead, even if a few animals didn't make it to bedtime. Turns out, I still had a mountain of leftover supplies, so I decided to put it to use, and finally built a bridge connecting the ranch to the horse arena. No more swimming or long detours around the lake. I was really admiring my progress, which I had gotten about a quarter done when I missed the soft hiss behind me, and before I could turn, I patched up the creeper damage first thing in the morning and got back to work. I chugged along until I'd finally made it halfway through the bridge. That's when it really hit me how massive this lake actually is. What I thought would be a quick bridge was definitely becoming a full-on project. On day 73, my supplies were actually starting to get sparse again, so it turned into a surprise logging day. I was just thinking about how everything was going smoothly. My ranch was thriving, the farm was stocked, the arena was done, the bridge halfway built, and I had my whole little farm crew until I noticed something strange. The wind was really picking up and the sky was totally shifting. The clouds started spinning, and that's when I had remembered that I updated my mod pack the night before, which I guess meant the weather and tornadoes mod finally kicked in. Instant regret. A full tornado appeared on the plains. I was watching from a safe distance. The second I realized its path headed straight towards the ranch, we bolted, racing home before the storm could reach Pebbles, Boots, or Willow. Night was falling very fast. The sky was turning into this eerie black as the tornado actually crested the ridge above my valley. I pushed Bambi up the hill. Terrifying moment. I felt us getting pulled back toward the funnel of the tornado. And then, because Minecraft loves drama, a mob decided to attack us mid-escape. When we finally reached the overlook, I saw the tornado tearing a path through the mountainside, and then fizzling out just in the nick of time. My ranch was untouched. My animals were safe. The only scar was the shredded mountainside behind us. Proof of how close the disaster actually was. The damage from the tornado the day before had really taken its toll. Surrounding areas did look kind of sad. The nearby forest was pillaged through, and it just felt a little dead. There even seemed to be less mobs around. But I was not going to let this stop my forward momentum. First things first though, I needed to make sure this would not happen again, so I set out to get a weather forecaster block, which is basically like a weather app but in Minecraft, as well as a weather deflector block, which would prevent a specific area, aka my farm, from being torn apart. To build the weather deflector and forecast block, I needed gold, iron, and redstone. So back to the mines I went. This nearby cave turned into a whole adventure. Skeletons sniping from corners, creepers dropping in uninvited. 75 days in and I am still getting blown up by creepers. And one very close call with a hidden lava pool. By sunset, my inventory was stuffed with everything I needed, so I headed home, crafted the forecaster and deflector block, and finally felt a little safer after that whole tornado scare. Now all that was left was checking the forecast every day, just in case Minecraft decided to throw another fit. Day 76, confidence had been restored, and the tornado must not have been all bad luck because look what it whirled in. That's right, a donkey. Say hello to Eeyore, everyone, my assistant farmer. I quickly tamed this new addition and using the horse's old saddle, rode him all the way back home. I have to say, at this point, I was so used to my very speedy Swem horses, so this much slower going donkey took some getting used to, but nonetheless, I was very pleased with this new friend who would make farming a whole lot more interesting. The next morning, we got straight to work. I hooked Eeyore up, and just like that, we were plowing the fields to expand my little farmland. Sure, the donkey hunt side quest took some time, but it was well worth it because within minutes, my new little farming field was prepped for seeds. So I gave him a good boy apple treat for all his hard work. Now, that surprise tornado did give us some side quests, but now it was time to pool my focus back on the bridge. And despite me dodging zombies left and right all through the night, I finally completed the bridge. Granted, I'm not a pro bridge builder, but I was pretty pleased with my work. To celebrate, I utilized the new bridge and I hopped on Bambi for a little show jump session. Still plenty of work to do in that arena, but it was fun to start testing him out, and the bridge made going to and from the arena a breeze. It also just made everything feel a little more connected. With all the wild weather lately, I decided my 2 horses needed proper blankets because Minecraft horses deserve to stay cozy too. While I was at it, I realized they didn't even have halters. How had I missed that? So naturally, I crafted those as well. Now Bambi and Willow were fully outfitted and looking extra fancy for any storm that dare shows up. Oh, and Eeyore was looking a little plain and feeling left out probably, so I popped a chest on him. My morning forecast check nearly stopped my heart today. There was a storm inbound. I rushed to the deflector only to realize it needed redstone to, actually function. But luckily, we narrowly avoided any storm that might have been incoming. I hit that point in farm life where I have so many animals that everyone needs a proper name tag, so I spent the day wandering the ranch with tags in hands, labeling, of course, the VIPs first. Bambi, Willow, Boots, Eeyore, then the cows and sheep got their turn. After way too much thinking, Bessie and Daisy joined the dairy squad, and Woolsey and Pudding became the wool crew. By sundown, the whole place finally felt like a named, organized, slightly less chaotic family. Today was all about paths. Yes, it's really as exciting as it sounds. I spent the whole day connecting all my structures, the main barn, the house, the garden, with neat little walkways. 3.5 shovels later, and finally we had a farm that's actually navigable. Day 85, I decided to break for yet another training session. I started by giving Bambi a good grooming session. Getting brushed is his favorite part of the routine. But the second I hopped on, he turned into an absolute drama king. Bucking, stopping, refusing to move. However, a quick vet check later, and I found the culprit. He had not been eating his grain. Therefore, a new ranch rule was born. No turnout until every bowl was empty. So after a quick feeding, Bambi crushed the entire course on the first go. My horses were officially leveling up in life. After some seriously needed mucking, I realized, after all this jumping, my horses still didn't have the proper attire, as I'd been using my original set of adventure tack this entire time. So with my remaining refined leather from weeks ago, I created an English tack set so the horses could look like proper jumpers out there on the course rather than hillbillies with their western saddles. It was day 87 and the ranch was really feeling alive. After all the hard work, I saddled up Willow and rode her alongside Bambi, who I ponied along for the ride, for a freeing trot through the fields, pebbles prancing beside us, the sun dipping low in the sky. Everything was so peaceful. I ended the day on a hilltop, watching the sunset paint the ranch in golds and pinks. Little did I know at the time, it was the calm before the storm. The following day, as I worked around the farm, it hit me. Something was missing. My horse's pastures needed a pond, a tree looking over it for that perfect idyllic vibe, and not just any pond. I wanted an axolotl pond. It had always been my dream to have one. So the day turned into an endless cycle of digging holes, filling up the pond, doing some light decorating to it, and shaping the land just right. By nightfall, the pond was patiently awaiting its tiny new residents. And so the real adventure began. I needed 2 things: a cherry blossom tree sapling for the pond centerpiece, and axolotls. Axolotls only thrive in lush caves, which are rare, distant, and even if I did manage to find one, it wasn't guaranteed an axolotl. But I was stubborn and ambitious, so I packed my bed, food, leads, and tacked up Bambi and his adventure set. Along the way, we got some cherry tree saplings from the forest on the ridge of my valley. Night fell as we reached a mountainous area, which seemed like a promising place to start my hunt, but I had to set up a temporary camp before the creepers came out. So I tied Bambi to a tree and slept to the distant moans of zombies. The next day, leaving Bambi outside a nearby cave, I plunged straight into the mines, determined to find axolotls. After what felt like hours of losing myself in dark tunnels, I actually found a lush cave. I searched every nook and cranny, scanning each pool for those tiny elusive creatures, but there was nothing. Only the sound of dripping water and the faint eerie glow of glowberries guiding my way. Time was slipping away faster than I expected. Night had fallen outside, and food and torches were running dangerously low. I had to get back out anyways to take care of Bambi, who had been patiently waiting at the cave entrance. As I made my way to Bambi, suddenly skeleton arrows were whistling past us. Panicking, we bolted for the nearest exit. In the middle of our very intense escape, Bambi bore a near miss as a creeper exploded directly next to us. He was very dehydrated, so he wouldn't gallop and would constantly stop to buck, even if we needed to get away fast. But nonetheless, we plunged deeper into the dark forest in search of my temporary base. Although I had definitely lost my way, and very much so regretted not using a waypoint at my little camp, I was panicked with the need to protect my boy at all costs. Our escape led into early the next morning. Skeletons were still chasing us through the trees, so I sprinted Bambi up a hill as fast as his little legs could go, even though he was getting tired, desperate to lose them, only to crest the top and find a lava pool I just hadn't seen coming. I tried to jump it, but Bambi was exhausted and reared at the last second. That tiny hesitation sealed it for us. Bambi hit the lava first and was gone instantly. I respawned at the base camp. Bambi did not. I have to say, I have never felt so much grief over a pixelated horse. I just kept thinking about the day I first found Willow and Bambi, when I tamed him, the first ride, the many memories training in the arena, our sunset rides together. I mean, this was Bambi, who I'd raised since he was a little foal and who had been with me through thick and thin ever since day 9. More than anything, I was just mad at myself for walking straight into the lava. Determined to honor him, I pressed on heavy-hearted, recrafted everything I would need, still searching for that darn axolotl. And then, a flicker of hope. Glowberries lit a nearby lush cave, and there swimming in a hidden pool were 2 tiny axolotls. At least, Bambi didn't die for nothing. With my 2 new friends in tow, I packed up camp and journeyed back home, which took much longer without Bambi. I quickly placed the 2 axolotls into their pond before they died of being out of the water for too long. After all I had gone through, I was not losing these little guys. And then I had a little ceremony to honor Bambi. During my morning chores, the ranch just felt quiet, especially when I passed Bambi's empty stall. I decided I wouldn't risk the same mistakes with Willow, so inspired by storms, hostile mobs, and lava, I crafted her an armored pasture blanket. This is not just decoration, folks, but diamond-level protection with healing, magic, fire resistance, and even the power to freeze water or harden lava. Willow was now ready for anything. Day 94, I saddled Willow at sunrise. Today's mission was to bring new life to the axolotl pond. In order to do that, I needed tropical fish to breed them, which meant my first adventure out since that night we lost Bambi. We rode off and found an ocean. It was a ways from camp, but well worth it when I managed to catch several tropical fish. Back home, I started the day arranging lily pads, adding glowberries for ambiance, transforming this pond into the oasis I had always dreamed it would be. Then came the magical moment, and poof, one little pink baby axolotl was born. I named it Bambino, a little tribute to Bambi. With that, the pond wasn't just a project anymore. It made everything a little closer to the paradise I'd been building for 95 days. Come sunrise, I wanted to clear my head, so I went out for a nice walk with Pebbles and Boots by my side. That is when I spotted a lone horse that had wandered into the valley. I went for it, and after a few hundred tries, I managed to tame him, and since I still had one Contazarite potion left, I figured why not? One quick pour later and poof, I had a brand new swim stallion before me. I used redstone and lapis to cycle through coats until I found one that just felt right. Also, one that I made myself and that you can snatch on my Ko-Fi store. I named him Phoenix in honor of new beginnings. Okay, so Phoenix, not exactly a speed demon or a natural jumper. The pillagers weren't impressed either. But hey, no horse is perfect on day one. So the training began slowly but surely. Bonding time was key. And just like Bambi, he loved a good brush down after his ride. I think Willow appreciated having a new friend around too. We were reaching the end, and the forecaster warned of storms today, so I rounded up every animal, locked them up in their stalls, as I watched a massive tornado form above the valley. But thankfully, it never touched the ranch. I just sat and watched as the winds raged above, safe below. With the danger past, I finally crafted Phoenix his own armored blanket so he could stay warm and safe in bad weather. He was really becoming part of the family. Day 99. How had we gotten here already? Waking up, I realized something shocking. Ever since day 12, I hadn't touched my house. So the goal was simple: decorate. The bedroom got a few tables, some personal touches around the house, and it just gave everything warmth. It was cozy, functional, and entirely mine now. In fact, why don't I give you guys a little tour? Welcome to mi casa. This is the exterior. I'm really happy I tried to make it very natural. We got our cute little bell here. And then you come right in, you see the kitchen. And I added some little horse paintings that I'm really proud of. I think it's quite cute. We also have more kitchen space and a big dining table. Cookies are on the menu every single night. We got my little storage space, and up this ladder we have more decor, more storage, and we've got Pebble's little area there and just some more space for working away. And then onto my bedroom, which I absolutely love. I mean, what a killer view I have got going on there. We've got a little study space. It just feels so warm and cozy. Oh, and there's Boots demonstrating how to relax on the bed. And so the final day arrived before I even realized it. I got to watch the zombies burn outside for the last time. 100 days ago, this world was pretty empty, and now it is a full ranch with barns, pastures, and more memories than I can count at this point. The good, the chaotic, and the heartbreaking. I spent the day doing one last round of farm chores, giving the stables a much-needed muck out, and making sure every animal was settled. As the sun set, I ended the challenge by the lake with Willow, Phoenix, Boots, and Pebbles gathered around the campfire. After everything we'd built and survived, the ranch finally felt alive. And honestly, this doesn't feel like an ending. It feels like the start of whatever comes next. I logged back into the world exactly how I'd left it, peacefully overlooking the ranch I'd built in my first 100 days. Of course, that calm never lasts, so just like that, day 101 began. One of my biggest goals this stretch was breeding horses, but more horses meant more mouths to feed, so I spent the entire day expanding the farm. I worked straight into the night, and that's when I remembered I didn't have Boots, my trusty cat, with me then and there to scare off creepers, because the second I stepped away from the farm to head to bed, yeah, way to start this challenge off with a literal bang, I guess. Anyways, day 102, I farmed and crafted loads of Timothy and alfalfa bales for my trusty horses, Phoenix and Willow, who were very pleased by the all-you-can-eat buffet that poofed before their eyes. Come morning, I realized I couldn't do this alone anymore. I needed to invest in upgrades. If there was only a mod that could help automate farming. There is? And with the cutest little helpers? Sign me up. So with a hay bale and a pumpkin, I turned this scarecrow, jack-o'-lantern looking thing into a real boy. I made a little army of straw golems and watched as they got to work harvesting my crops. The next day, I had plans to expand the horse stables until I got a dire message from Pebbles the pup. Yeah, no dog on my watch watch would be on the brink of death this time around because I had done something as silly as neglecting to feed her. That's when it hit me. I never crafted her a Doggy Talents food bowl, so I fixed that immediately. Now I could load it up with food so she'd stop harassing me every 5 minutes. However, today was once again all about Pebbles because, I mean, look how cute she is. Also because I had very much neglected some pretty cool features of the Doggy Talents mod. One being the fact that I can give her talents. Like, hello, it's literally in the mod name. So I spent my 15 points she had gained, giving Pebbles some serious upgrades, blocking monster attacks for me, doing extra damage per bite, hurting livestock, and even sniffing out valuable ores. I also set her to aggressive mode, so she's officially my tiny fluffy bodyguard, but I couldn't help but think the only thing deadly about her was those puppy dog eyes. Now, yes, I know I was supposed to be building out my stables, but with my new little sidekick, I was determined to get her a friend. If I was asking Pebbles to put her life on the line to be my guard dog, she was going to need some backup, especially on hard mode. So I tacked up Phoenix and set out on our very first adventure of the challenge with one clear goal: grow the wolf pack. And so we searched and searched. And seriously, how hard is it to find a wolf in this game? Although the sightseeing was fun, I was getting salty about wasting 3 precious days on this so far fruitless endeavor. But then, in a quiet taiga biome, there he was. A few bones and a training treat later, meet Pip. Yes, I turned him into a chihuahua because the idea of this tiny little peanut defending me from zombies and trigger-happy skeletons felt both savage and deeply ridiculous. With our new recruit in tow, Phoenix and I headed back to the homestead to introduce Pebbles to her new friend. It was love at first sight. And honestly, I think Pebbles appreciated the upgrade from Boots, who, while beloved, is a bit of a diva and generally prefers to pretend Pebbles does not exist. Day 109 reaffirmed the harsh reality that nothing good lasts forever. I went out to collect crops, fully expecting my straw golem army to be hard at work, only to realize they were gone. That's when I learned these adorable little guys only have a lifespan of about 7 days, unless you feed them wheat. Poor things didn't even get to enjoy a well-earned retirement. I rebuilt the straw golem army, pretended my heart wasn't a little broken, and peace was restored to the fields once more. Though there was plenty of life bustling around the farm, it somehow still felt a little dead. So I decided it was time to liven up this cozy ranch with some proper lighting. So I spent the day, as well as the night, placing light posts and tidying up the landscaping along every path. And this time, with Boots glued to my side to keep any surprise exploding visitors away, my fierce guard dogs also helped chase off everyone else. By the end, the ranch was beginning to feel even more warm, welcoming, and, well, yeah, I only did one path, but it took a lot more time than I thought, okay? The next day, I got to slowly landscaping away on the next path. Safe to say, I was super pleased with how it was coming along, although I ran out of materials quite quickly, so the finishing of the project would have to be postponed to another day. That night, the 2 biggest paths created a glow of cozy, welcoming light. I even checked on Willow and Phoenix, who, true to form, had polished off their all-you-can-eat buffet and were staring daggers at me to replenish the goodies. I'd been going on and on about adding more stalls to the horse barn, so today felt like the day to finally take the plunge. Problem, materials were running low. First things first, resource gathering. I know, try to contain your excitement. So day 112 was spent as a temporary lumberjack, and thanks to Pebbles, who's, let's be honest, a better miner than me at this point, we scored a lot of iron from a nearby cave without too many heart-stopping creeper moments. Today was divide and conquer day. The plan: split the existing large stalls into 2 brand new ones. Somehow in my head it felt like I was rebuilding the entire barn from scratch, but I fiddled, I rearranged, and I finally got the layout to make sense. By the end of the day, I stepped back exhausted but proud, thinking, why did literally just splitting a room in half feel like some sort of epic construction project? The next morning, I looked at the other side and said, guess we're doing this again. On my next mission, I traded the ranch life for the ocean life. The mission, forage kelp from the nearest ocean. Back at the ranch, I put the kelp in the furnace to dry and transformed it into durable rubber mats for the stalls. Now it was time to replace that old grass flooring for something far more suitable for the horses. Rubber mats, of course, which I put in each and every stall. By day's end, it felt like we were all the more closer to a proper horse barn. The next day was all about, once again, stable expansion. And I quickly realized this wasn't going to be just a simple one-day task. First up, a hallway to connect the stalls with the rest of the new barn. My next to-do, the feed room. This was a non-negotiable. I needed a proper place for all their supplies, not just a sad little chest. Pebbles and Pip helps by running laps around me and somehow getting in the way every time I was trying to place a block somewhere. 2 days of no shut-eye later, I had a functional feed room. I got a little caught up with the decorating, I'll admit, but finally, I had used my own creativity instead of following a video. Today was all about starting the tack room. Not a flashy project, but one of those that quietly changes everything. So I found proper places for saddles, gave bridles a real home, and slowly began turning the space from a chest into something intentional, which continued into the next day. I fine-tuned even more, adjusted, rearranged, and tweaked until it finally felt right. I was working myself crazy because by night when I looked up, the phantoms had come out to play. I realized Boots wasn't by my side scaring them off for me, so I grabbed her again to have my little guard cat with me, and eventually, with my focus back on the tack room, I was able to make the space fully functional and even, dare I say, cute. Now, the wash stalls were still looming ominously on my to-do list, but that would have to wait for another day because I was officially hitting the hay. After a night's rest, I did not procrastinate. I dove straight into the wash stalls. My goal, give my horses a proper place to get groomed and tacked up, away from the awkward standing in the fields, which would often lead to a game of tag with them running away while I'm attempting to tack them up. It definitely took some precise block placement, ton of crafting, and of course, few unwelcome visitors, but it wouldn't be Minecraft without them. By nightfall, one of the wash stalls was ready. After that, I decided one wash stall would do because I had other plans for the second stall. Day 123, the rain dawned on me, and I suddenly realized I'd been ignoring a very obvious problem. Message received, so today became a roof day. I worked in the rain, but by the end, there was finally cover overhead. Everything felt instantly more finished, more solid, and significantly less damp. Like I said, my plans with the last empty space of the barn had changed. I decided to convert what was supposed to be the second wash stall into a hay shed. So I started by replacing the rubber mats with some stone flooring. Then I crafted a stack of hay bales and just laid them out until the space finally made sense. What was supposed to be a wash stall slowly became something much more practical. It wasn't fancy, but it felt right. The next day, I leaned fully into aesthetics. Somewhere between stacking hay and organizing tools, I decided this storage shed needed a tractor. Is it functional? No. Is it necessary? Also no. But I built it anyway. I also added wheelbarrows, tools, and a few messy storage corners, like a real working barn instead of just a perfect untouched build. On this particular day, the devil was in the details, so I decorated the hallway, filling in the empty stretches and just tying everything together. It was the kind of work you don't notice at first, but once it's done, the whole place feels complete. The barn finally felt like one connected whole, not just a collection of projects. Don't get me wrong, I was exhausted, but the barn, officially next level. Day 127 was supposed to be a training day with Phoenix and Willow, but took a bit of a turn because the sky darkened again. Lightning cracked over the valley as wind tore through the fields, but the ranch held thanks to our handy weather deflectors. The animals stayed safe. I spent most of the day blanketing and unblanketing the horses and promptly slept through the day. After all the hard work, I needed a break, so I spent the day just playing with the ponies. I even got to test out my new wash stall, which was very functional. A minor life improvement, sure, but a win is a win. My ride with Willow was perfection. She has truly become the sweetest, steadiest mare. Phoenix, not so much yet. But chaos aside, it was exactly the carefree, fun day we all needed. Now came the day to once again expand the dog pack. Pebbles and Pip were going to have a pup. Odd couple, maybe, but a third dog would really round out the ranch crew. First things first, breeding bones. Anyone familiar with the Better Dog mod knows that these are a nightmare to craft. You need rare drops, there's multiple steps, no shortcuts, so I spent the whole day gathering and crafting these elusive breeding bones. What felt like hours of mining, smelting, and resource juggling later, I finally held 2 bones in my hands. Victory. Time for the magic to happen. 1 bone each for Pebbles and Pip, and poof, out came the cutest little wolf pup. Naturally, she became a corgi because, farm dog vibes. I named her Poppy, keeping the P theme alive. Honestly, I couldn't stop grinning. She was so small, literally smaller than Pip. She was the cutest addition to our growing ranch family, and truly these pups became the cutest trio. Baby fever, yeah. I think baby Poppy gave me that. Today marked the official start of my horse empire. So with my little army behind me, expanded stables, and upgraded farm, I finally had the resources, time, and space to add 1 more foal to the herd. No more, no less. I crafted rose feed, a special item required to breed swim horses. I even grabbed my vet check bag to make sure everything was in tip-top shape, then brought Phoenix and Willow out to the same pasture. Love was definitely in the air today. And it indeed was a success. Willow was pregnant, and in just a day or 2, a new tiny-hoofed member of the family would arrive. I spent the day anxiously awaiting, preoccupying myself with mundane farm chores. At one point, I checked Willow and saw she was already halfway through her gestation. I literally could not contain myself. I was so excited. To pass the time, I crafted a pink halter and armored pasture blanket, just imagining the little foal trotting around the ranch. It was like waking up on Christmas morning, but dare I say, better. I dashed outside to check on Willow and was greeted by the cutest little chestnut foal standing beside her. And then I took a closer look, revealing something I did not see coming. Twins! At first I was a bit overwhelmed, I'll admit, but my excitement quickly took over. So with my vet check bag in hand, I confirmed Willow had 2 healthy colts. I named them Rusty and Chip and spent the day fawning over them. The twins were still tiny and wobbly, so it was a full-on keep the ranch running smoothly day. Morning was spent milking cows, shearing sheep, and making sure everyone had fresh feed and water. A few wandering pigs had to be rounded up too, with some beetroot, because apparently fences are just a suggestion in their world. This morning started very quietly. The twins were sticking close to Mom in the pasture. Well, one of the twins. Chip, of course, was already showing signs of trouble. The adventurous one always staying just a little too far and somehow ending up in the axolotl pond. After a quick rescue mission, all was well, and by the end of the day, wow, they had transformed into full-fledged, gorgeous swim horses. I was equal parts proud and panicked because in just a moment I suddenly had double the work. Nonetheless, I put them out to pasture with their dad Phoenix. Now, their coats though, not exactly my style. I grabbed my trusty redstone and lapis ready to cycle through every swim coat in my arsenal. But problem, I only had a few measly pieces of redstone. Clearly this wasn't going to be enough to customize my perfect pair. Looks like this would call for a mining expedition. Mining day came. This was it. My chance to gather the redstone and lapis I desperately needed. I called in my ore-sniffing expert Pebbles to guide the way. I also grabbed her dog bed so we could sleep overnight if the adventure happened to run long. At first, everything went perfectly. Pebbles darted through the tunnels, tail wagging like a pro, sniffing out veins of iron, gold, and yes, glimmering redstone and lapis. I felt unstoppable. The caves twisted and plunged into the darkness, and there was that faint tension, echoing footsteps, distant hisses of mobs, and the louder explosions of them too. But I pushed it aside. Today was about success. Nothing could stop us. And nothing could have prepared me for what awaited us in a ravine I stumbled upon. I had ventured down it with visions of treasures lining the cave walls, waiting in the dark, never imagining the danger that lurked. And at first everything went well, when suddenly, ambush. Skeletons, zombies, even a rare witch, that's how unlucky I was, poured from every shadow surrounding me. I swung, blocked, and ran, but there were just too many. Pebbles, ambitious and fearless as ever, leapt forward without hesitation. My heart hammered as I tried to pull her back, but there was nothing I could do. In a final, blazing act of bravery, she charged the remaining mobs, giving me a narrow window to escape. I saw her fall. Once my health regained, I found myself very alone. I wandered the twisting tunnels, searching every corner, retracing my steps again and again. I tried to respawn her using the bed. Really shouldn't have broken it because it must have disconnected her connection to it. After 2 agonizingly desperate days, it was time to return to the ranch. I had to come to terms with the fact that my little buddy since day 3 was gone. Poppy, grown now, sniffed around for her mom. Little Pip circled anxiously, confused and searching for his friend. Pebbles was gone, but her courage and her loyalty left a mark that would never fade. By her favorite digging spot, I placed a small marker, a piece of the ranch to honor the dog who had given everything to protect this place. Deep down, I knew her bravery would never be forgotten. Tomorrow, the work had to continue for Pebbles, for the farm she loved, and for the courage she showed when it mattered most. Heart heavy, I had to keep moving. Today was all about giving Pip and Poppy a proper home. In honor of everything these dogs had been through, they deserved some upgrades. I started laying the foundation for a sturdy, cozy doghouse, big enough for both, but still snug. By sunset, the frame was up, and I could already picture the two of them, curled up inside, safe and warm. By the next day, the doghouse was finally coming to a finish, complete with beds, a bath, and a food bowl. Plus, all the cute decor. Pip and Poppy immediately explored every crook and cranny, racing from corner to corner, before I assigned them each a bed and collapsing in a satisfied nap. After watching them settle, I took a quiet walk to Pebbles' marker. She deserved more than just a little spot in the dirt. With care, I dug her a proper grave, placing the marker and surrounding it with flowers and some sand from the beach in honor of the day I found her. It was her honorary spot in the doghouse. This way she could always be with her family. Day 142 was all about Rusty and Chip finally training my very green colts and turning them into perfect additions to the herd. But before we dive into the training, it was time for the moment I've been dreading, deciding on their coats. With my hard-earned redstone and lapis at the ready, I carefully cycled through every swim option until I landed on my custom designs. Rusty got the strawberry roan. Chip, the more spirited of the two, became a red roan Tobiano. Bold, flashy, and also available on my Ko-Fi shop for anyone who wants to deck out their own herd. I couldn't believe my luck. I had just enough redstone for both. I breathed a huge sigh of relief. No more mining trips for now. Then came the fun part. They were a little wild at first, especially Chip, who seemed determined to test every single limit. But patience paid off, slowly but surely. After everything we'd been through, I wanted to make sure my dogs were safer going forward. I spent the day investing talent points into armor and defense for Pip and Poppy, turning them into much sturdier little guardians. I crafted both of them full sets of iron armor, made me feel like I was finally learning from my past mistakes. On day 144, I decked out Rusty in his pink blanket and a halter and used Bambi's old pasture blanket, armored it up, and paired it with Chip's yellow halter. Pink and yellow, surprisingly a winning combo. After recent events, the ranch was starting to feel muted, so I decided it was time to add a little color. I saddled up Willow and set out in search of new life for the ranch, with Poppy trailing behind us. We were looking for a parrot. Yep, a feathered friend, and not the chicken kind because we already have plenty of those. It was quite the journey. Dense forests, open lavender plains, and finally, faint green canopy of a jungle in the distance. I set up camp under the massive jungle trees and began constructing a makeshift base. But then, the weather turned. Great timing. I grabbed Willow, leading her close to shelter, when out of the corner of my eye, I spotted the tiniest turtle. It felt like the world had paused. And then I looked over my shoulder. A massive tornado was forming, frozen for just a heartbeat. Eventually, instinct kicked in, but it was too late. The tornado's pull was just too strong, so I had to hop off Willow and unclip the lead in a last-ditch effort to save Willow. The night became a blur of chaos. I was flung around inside the whirling storm, desperately hoping Poppy and Willow were safe. Eventually, I was rudely chucked into the ocean. In the dark, churning waters, a sudden magical moment appeared. A colossal whale glided by, serene and majestic, its presence calming the storm around me for just a heartbeat, before realizing it was still dark and I didn't know where the rest of my animal crew was. I decided to rest, saving the search for Willow and Poppy for daylight. And immediately, the Minecraft gods decided to greet me with an arrow to the face. I really don't know what I did to displease them. After taking care of that friendly feller, I quickly located Willow, but more skeletons came charging, forcing me to retreat once again. Then, through the chaos, I spotted her, little Poppy, alive, thank goodness. I rounded up Willow, and together we pressed on in search of our feathered friend. Along the way, I saw the sweetest sleeping camel, and then we came upon the jungle. Unfortunately, the tornado was ripping through it, so I would have to wait it out. Lucky for me, just as soon as I said that, the tornado fizzled out, and we headed into the jungle, greeted by more strange creatures like this pig thing that was sleeping. Very cute, except it wasn't. I went up to say hi, and then it immediately started lunging at Willow, who panicked and bucked wildly. Lesson learned, even the cutest things can be deadly in the jungle. Finally, after navigating the twisting, torn up foliage, a flash of red, a little bird. I tried to tame it, but it vanished before I could blink, and then miraculously, it returned with a friend this time. I named one Jinx because, honestly, after this adventure, that felt right, and the other Binks. With my new flock secured and the storm fading behind us, we rode back toward the ranch. After a little snooze, I got to working making the new members of the flock, Jinx and Binks, feel at home. First, name tagging the two of them, and then creating their own little parrot home. A quaint parrot cage hanging from a cherry blossom tree outside, overlooking the lake. It might not be the rainforest, but they seemed pretty pleased with the view. After all the crazy, it was time for a simple chore day. With double the horses came double the responsibility. Watering, feeding grain and hay, and mucking out the pastures had me knee-deep in, well, let's just say it was a very poo-heavy morning. While I was at it, I added slow feeders to their stalls, just so they would have access to hay if I was a little slow to turn them out in the morning, or there was a storm that they needed to stay in for all day. Then came training day day for Rusty and Chip. And just because they share a birthday doesn't mean they have to share a training session together. So I took Rusty out first, but just as we reached the bridge, I knew something was wrong. Large sections of it were torn apart, my first real warning sign. The fields were ravaged, and even the pillager tower had been torn through. It was clear the jungle hadn't been the only place with tornadoes in the forecast during my little adventure. My weather deflectors clearly hadn't reached this far out. With that realization, the plan for the day took a quick pivot. I put Rusty away and got to work. I started by planting tree saplings to bring life back to the damaged land, then moved on to repairing the bridge piece by piece. Of course, had to add a weather deflector because I didn't want to have to learn the same lesson 3 times. Once the basics were restored, I couldn't help but improve things from across the lake while I was there. The project carried into day 150. I created a proper path leading from the bridge to the arena, lining it with cherry saplings. Nearby watering holes caught my eye, areas that had potential if given a little care, so I shaped the edges with stone, cleaned them up until they felt charming instead of forgotten. What started as a routine outing turned into restoration work. And by the end of the day, the farm was honestly better for it. After all the rebuilding, replanting, and repairs, it felt right to return to something familiar. The horses needed it, and honestly, so did I. So really, this time, Rusty went first, calm, focused, eager to learn. Then came Chip, and chaos erupted. Bucking, sidestepping, testing every ounce of my patience. To make things more exciting, our angry neighbors, the pillagers, decided to join in on the fun. Between dodging kicks and dodging arrows, progress was minimal. After numerous frustrating buck-offs, I called it off early and let Chip strut off victorious. In spirit, if not in skill. The next day, I began to think maybe Chip wasn't meant to be a jumper, so I shifted gears and spent the day bonding. A good grooming session, treats, and a gentle trail ride around the ridge of the valley brought out his calmer side. Turns out, he loves exploring. He just had to find his jam. So for now, adventure was the way to his heart. Day 153 arrived, and I set my sights on crafting a brand new adventure tack set for the horses, as the last one had disappeared along with one of my first horses, Bambi. I also made tack boxes in their signature colors, binding each to its horse, matchy-matchy and practical exactly how I like my horse things. At this point in the challenge, honestly, I was so over the same food every day. Chicken, potatoes, rinse and repeat. Time to spice things up and maybe pick a new hobby while I was at it. Fishing. I built a small dock by the river. Boots tried hopping in one of the boats. Looks like we've already got a little fisherman on our hands. By the end of the day, I had a proper little fishing spot. My farm's newest corner, food and relaxation. It dawned upon me, I had missed the halfway point of this challenge, so better late than ever for a celebration, right? I just spent the day soaking in farm life. I hopped on Rusty for a little show jump session, still plenty of work to do in that arena, but it was fun testing him out. Then I took Willow for a hand gallop through the fields. Calm, free, and exactly what we all needed. Today just started off normal, another round of farm chores, until I spotted something. A whole herd of horses. The first herd I'd seen in this part of the challenge. I knew it probably wasn't the best time to expand the herd, but I've been dreaming of a mule. They've got way better stats than your average donkey. No offense, Eeyore. Problem, swim horses can't be bred with vanilla donkeys. Cue me, villain of every horse movie ever, borrowing the cutest bay pate mare from the herd. Unbeknownst to me, she actually already had a foal. Sorry. I tamed her, rode her back to the farm, and after a slightly awkward matchmaking session, boom, we had the cutest mule. My first hybrid. Totally worth the moral crisis. Of course, I reunited the mare with her original baby. The next day was all about watching my little mule grow up. Easily the cutest thing on the farm. She's got her mom's spirit and Eeyore's ears, an iconic combo. I named her Winnie. My swim horses may be high maintenance divas, but Eeyore and Winnie, not so much. With them crammed into the main barn with the rest of the farm crew, I decided it was time. A cozy barn just for the mule and donkey duo. First step, clear the spot. One quick block here and there became 10, and the day vanished. By sunset, I was exhausted and my inventory was overflowing. But phase 1 was done. Somehow overnight, Winnie had fully grown and she was ready to be tamed. Pretty smooth sailing in that arena. Next up, a supply run for the new barn. Trees were chopped, stone was mined, crafting table was working overtime. I gathered everything I'd need. I missed my supervisor Pebbles. It was weird not having her around to keep me in line. Construction day, the foundation went down, main logs stacked, and the frame of the donkey and mule barn was officially up. Not very pretty yet, but it felt real. I spent the day adding the final touches to the stalls, slowly bringing them to life until night fell and an Enderman decided to watch me way too closely. I wasn't built for that fight today, so I took the hint and called it a night. Finishing touches day, hay piles, water troughs, and a few cozy details later, the barn was officially ready. I moved Eeyore and Winnie in and stood back, proud that my low maintenance duo finally had a space of their own. Another day began, and the horses were definitely looking cramped, especially the boys, all 3 of them squished into one pasture while Willow watched from her massive field like royalty. So I made it fair and expanded the pasture boundaries. The stallions now had a little more breathing room. I'd been dreaming of an apple orchard for a while, and let's be honest, this is a horse ranch after all, so it's about time they get a proper restaurant. I planted one right in the center of the farm by the barn and set down apple saplings from Pam's Harvest Craft, keeping it simple but purposeful. I could not wait to watch it grow, and I think the horses were even more excited than me about this new development. Come sunrise, I thought it was time to add a little bit more personality to the farm. I built an archway leading into the stables, and it instantly gave the place more presence, like you're arriving somewhere. Day 165. It was finally time to finish what I started. 2 paths down, who knows how many to go. Gravel edges, flowers, lanterns, and of course Pip and Poppy helping by stepping in the exact spots I needed to place blocks. I picked up where I left off yesterday, refining details and continuing to shape the paths into something both practical and beautiful. By evening, the network of paths felt a little more cohesive, the farm a little more connected, yet still unfinished. Someday it will be completed. And just as I was showing off my finished product thus far, creepers sure have a funny sense of humor. Today's mission, make my garden a full-on pollination paradise. I wanted bees buzzing around to speed up my crops. I have many mouths to feed after all. Naturally, this meant dodging creepers, nearly falling into a river, and getting stung more than once. Apparently I haven't learned my lesson from last time. Luckily, by nightfall, I scouted out another beehive and decided to wait for them to come out in the morning. Sunrise took its sweet time, but eventually the bees decided to make an appearance. I was pleasantly surprised to count 3 of them and immediately began the slow process of luring them home with flowers. Although 1 bee quietly dipped out when I wasn't looking, but 2 felt like a solid win. It took basically the entire day to walk them back to base. Bee herding is not for the impatient, but we eventually made it. I introduced them to my straw golem pals, set up their bee nest area, and after one last round of chasing them across the field, they finally settled in and made themselves at home. The apple orchard was thriving. The very buzzy residents were doing their thing. I named them Buzz and Fuzz, and with a little flower breeding magic, meet Tuzz, the long-lost 3rd comrade. Yeah, I think I'm running out of names. Can you tell? With my garden officially buzzing, literally and figuratively, I decided it was time for the next big adventure, bringing bison to the ranch from the Untamed Wilds mod. For another food source, and let's be honest, they look really cool on the ranch. I grabbed Chip, my boldest adventure horse, and saddled up for what I imagined would be a quick trip. Yeah, right. Within minutes, we were galloping through forests and plains, dodging skeletons, and wondering why I thought catching a bison would be easy. A day into the search, Chip and I stumbled across a small village. The village was quiet until I noticed a stray cat. Boots had been getting lonely, so I figured, why not adopt this little wanderer? Apparently, I haven't gotten any better at taming cats from the last time because this took a while. Why do they have to be mini cheetahs? Anyways, after a few careful steps and almost all the fish I had packed for myself from my inventory, the cat was tamed. We resumed our journey at dawn. Chip, the newest addition, and I pushed deeper into dense forest in search of a meadow. On our travels, we passed through a desert biome where we promptly got caught in a sudden sandstorm that nearly blew us back to the start. Soon enough, we spotted the first bison in the distance, and beyond that, a herd grazing peacefully, completely oblivious to the chaos we were about to unleash. I waited until next morning to strike, and on day 172, it was all about trial and error. Catching a wild bison is nothing like taming a horse. I tried riding one because apparently I could do that, but little did I know, bison are extremely aggressive when they sense a threat. Before I could blink, the bison I tried to tame came for me, let out a furious charge, and suddenly Chip and I were staring down a stampede of one very angry, snorting hunk of muscle. My plan? Become the distraction. I ran and safely took high ground, retreating quickly. I soon came to the realization that leading them safely back to the ranch was impossible if I wanted to survive. Henceforth, plan B was devised. Craft traps. Heart pounding, I hurried to assemble 2 of the untamed wild's traps and carefully position them in the herd's path. The bison charged like a wall of fury, and then pop! I got not 1, but 2 in the traps. Surviving a bison stampede deserves a celebration. With my boxed up bison ready for transport, it was finally time to head to their new home, where they would cause far less chaos, hopefully. After a long night's travel, we were finally home, fully expecting a very personal how dare you headbutt from a couple angry bison. To my surprise, the bison stepped out calm, contained, and almost regal. Totally worth the chaos. Feeling confident, I opened the second trap, expecting another massive bison. Instead, I got... It was our mischievous little cat friend. Somehow, I had managed to trap my own cat instead of a second bison. In the end, it worked out. I only had room for 1 bison in the farmyard pen anyway. I gave this sneaky little criminal a name tag, transformed him into the fluffiest ragdoll cat imaginable, and officially named him Bebop. I can't tell if Boots appreciated the company, but they seemed to tolerate each other. After the bison adventure, whom I named Thor by the way, it was time to get the horse herd looking sharp. I crafted a sleek black tack set, saddle pads, leg wraps, the works, customized to match each horse's signature color. I geared up the herd with fly masks to keep the eternal summer from driving them crazy. Thanks, weather deflector. And with everyone looking stylish and comfortable, the ranch was officially ready for action. I wanted to get back to the horse farm expansion, so I grabbed Willow and crossed the bridge to start laying the foundation for my next project. One of my biggest undertakings yet, a dressage ring. Naturally, the pillagers had other plans. My annoying neighbors never failed to keep me on my toes. This project would mean taking down the pillager outpost that had set up camp dangerously close to where my arena needed to go. I geared up and brought Phoenix into battle too, who was less than helpful but looked heroic anyway. I stealthily rode him around the outpost, noting patrol routes, spawn points, and of course, that central tower where all the chaos seemed to originate. The next thing you know, I was going for it. I dodged arrows, hid behind pumpkin scarecrows, and had a brief panic moment when a Vindicator decided I was its personal punching bag. After promptly dying, I decided to cut my losses and recoup overnight, cuddling the kids. If this was going to work, my plan was going to have to change. I decided I needed to take out the archers first, then methodically clear the perimeter. Step 1, ranged attacks. I felt like Robin Hood taking them out with arrows here, retreating behind makeshift walls whenever a pillager got too close, recouping whenever I got too low on health. Step 2, close combat. Shield up, sword swinging like I was in some medieval action movie. Phoenix, on the other hand, was just enjoying the show. Eventually, I came out victorious. So I climbed the partially ruined central tower, thanks to that tornado, setting it ablaze with flint and steel, and flattened the spawn points with slabs and water. However, as I was watching the outpost crumble victoriously, I turned around when I was met with an arrow to the face. His victory didn't last long though, because I got back out there and landed the final blow on my enemy. The pillager's reign of terror was officially over. Time to clear the land. However, I wanted to make this arena a grass ring, and unfortunately, if you don't have silk touch, you can't really place down grass blocks, they'll just look like dirt. So on to my next mission, which would be crafting a silk touch shovel. In order to do this, I first needed an enchanting table, which would require one thing I didn't have yet: obsidian. Lucky for me, on a previous adventure, I had spotted a broken nether portal not far from camp, which had exactly what I needed. I set up my station, enchanted my tools, and luckily I got my very own silk touch shovel. Most of the day was spent with my nose on the grindstone, shoveling away in a nearby plain with Chip, until I had more than enough to create a perfectly flat patch for the dressage ring. Honestly, day 179 and 180 were about as mundane as it gets. But after a lot of grass placing and rearranging, it felt good knowing I had a perfect clearing worthy of an arena. That very next day, I got straight to work. Rails went up, which I had to shorten using a fence tool to make them dressage arena height. Dressage letters were crafted, and by midnight, it was officially finished. The arena looked the part, and the best part, no pillagers trying to ruin my plans. Finally, I could build in peace. Tomorrow, we'd put it to the test. Morning came, and I crafted a white saddle pad so the horses could really look clean and presentable. Willow was a dream in the ring, lifting her feet like a true pro. Chip? Well, let's just say, dressage and chaos are basically synonyms for him. Rusty, on the other hand, was surprisingly competent. Maybe the calmer twin has some hidden talent after all. With the dressage ring finally finished, I realized it was missing one crucial thing: a proper place to judge and watch the chaos. I had some extra land right next to the arena, so I decided to turn it into a small judge's booth, which quickly became a hangout area and quickly evolved into a cherry blossom gazebo. Finishing with the details, I made a place perfect for judges, spectators, or just me pretending like serious competitions go on here. Once it was done, the dressage ring finally felt truly complete. Riding the high from finishing the dressage ring, I decided why not keep pushing forward with training upgrades. Next goal, a round pen, a proper space for starting the young ones and working through the basics without distractions. I marked out a circular layout, which is way harder than it looks, guys, and started placing blocks. Simple in theory, surprisingly finicky in practice. I continued this project the next day, which was all about refining, adding the roof, and decorating the pen. I did manage to finish the roof and added lighting, a gate. By the end, I had a functional round pen ready for the next generation of horses. And just like that, the ranch took another big step forward. I might have done a little victory lap around it myself. It was finally time to test this new training spot. So I took Phoenix for a spin around the pen, just taking it all in. After our little test ride, I just knew it would become the perfect place to train any new additions to our herd. After I rode, I added some finishing touches, like a path leading up to it with shrubs and lighting, connecting the pen to the rest of the farm. Day 188 rolled around, and I caught myself thinking about how useful my cats had been around the farm. Whenever they were by my side, there wasn't a creeper in sight. So, naturally, I decided I needed more. After an early morning fishing trip, I staged a very official wedding ceremony for Bebop and Boots, officiated by yours truly and sealed with a ceremonial salmon. Moments later, a tiny kitten appeared, and my excitement instantly turned into horror. This was not a fluff ball, this was a skeletal, uncanny creature that looked like it had crawled out of the void. I panicked. Clearly, Ahmad was interfering with destiny here. Thankfully, a name tag saved the day. I signed the poor thing a proper coat. The monstrosity vanished, replaced by the smushed face, fluffy little angel I had been expecting. all along. Balance restored, I named him Binksy, and just like that, the farm gained yet another adorable resident. Another day dawned, and it was all about farm chores. Sheared sheep, reduced the pig population, milked cows, said hi to Thor in the middle of creating an unlikely friendship with little Binksy, who was so tiny compared to that hunk, and just general tending of the farm. I gave Jinx a seed snack, which I think he appreciated, and Binksy, tiny little legs and all, kept pace like a shadow the entire time. Time for yet another episode of livening up the equestrian oasis. It was my last big project that I intended to accomplish. It had been hanging over me this entire challenge. We got part 2, part 3, and yes, part 4 of this project. Apparently, just decorating the paths is never that easy. It is surprisingly time-consuming, which meant more lighting tweaks and decorating, and realizing I was completely out of materials again. So also more of running back and forth between crafting and placing blocks until the sun went down. The final polishing up day arrived. By the end, the farm felt more finished, inviting, functional, and finally worthy of all the work it took to get here. It was absolutely worth it. I knew day 194, with 1 week left in the challenge, was going to be a good one when I woke up with a soggy piece of cod on my pillow, courtesy of Binksy, who was all grown up, by the way. I wanted to go for a little celebratory, we made it this far trail ride, so I took out Chip along with the rest of the crew in tow. I just knew sunset was going to be beautiful. That was until the sky turned storm gray. So in a bit of a panic, I made the unfortunate decision to leap off the cliffside. Chip bucked, which initiated a potentially deadly kickoff between the brothers. A bit of frantic inventory fumbling later, I finally snatched a lead. You see those 3 little hearts? Yeah, Rusty was literally 1 kick from death. Come sunrise, I gave Rusty some much needed TLC. He'd been looking a little glum after all, and I wasn't about to let that slide. After that, I turned him out and spotted the sweetest sight. Willow quietly grazing by her late colt, Bambi's grave. Sometimes these pixel ponies feel almost alive. That moment made me forget my to-do list entirely. I spent the day just wandering the pastures, soaking in the quiet, but of course, nothing can ever go smoothly here. I was just picking poo and hustling back inside as the rain started when the nightmare happened. I slipped out of the boys' pasture and did the thing that haunts every horse owner's nightmares. I left the gate wide open. Morning chores began the next day, and I stepped out to no horses in the stallion pasture. I was beginning to panic, thinking that they had somehow despawned. My heart was sinking. Thankfully, they had not wandered far. They had discovered the gold mine of all gold mines in the horse world, the hay shed. Honestly, I was just relieved I hadn't lost any of my boys, because that would have been a very sour way to end 200 days. But it did get me thinking. My boys had each other, and ever since Bambi, Willow's only friends were the axolotls. Terrible company for a horse. So I pulled out the last of my rose feed, reunited Phoenix and Willow, and bam, a 3rd foal was on the way. Fingers crossed it's a filly so Willow could finally have a proper companion. On to the next day, I checked in with our amazing mare with the vet check bag. Progress was looking promising. I crafted a hunter green armored blanket and halter for the new arrival, gave the soon-to-be foal a spot in the tack room, and waited anxiously, counting every tick of the Minecraft clock. The foal still hadn't arrived, so I didn't really know what to do with myself that day, except play with the dogs. So I rounded up Pip and Poppy and took out the rusty old throw stick in the back of the cabinet. Poppy was an absolute beast at this. Like, seriously, total pro. While poor little Pip struggled because, well, I mean, his tiny legs just couldn't keep up. I made Poppy sit out the next few throws so Pip could actually have a try, though the stick was practically bigger than him. Dinner was eaten outside, Willow grazing nearby as I anxiously waited for the new arrival. I decided to stay up all night because there's no way I was missing this birth like I had with Rusty and Chip. As night fell, the wind howled outside the barn. Inside Willow's stall, everything was calm until it wasn't. Under the cover of the storm, the foal popped out of nowhere, and there stood before me was the cutest little foal. Only one this time, thank goodness. And guess what? We got a filly at long last. Her buckskin coat stopped me in my tracks. It looked just like Bambi, Willow's late colt, who died tragically in the previous 100 days. It felt less like a coincidence and more like a full circle moment. Now there's just one thing left. She needs a name. Comment below. I think you should decide. In all my excitement preparing for the foal when I went to bed that night, I hadn't even realized the final day of the challenge was just one sleep away. The realization dawned on me the next morning. So, to celebrate everything we'd accomplished, I took some time to just relax. I set up a little picnic hangout area on the other side of the lake, and later that day gathered all my found family. Dogs, cats, horses, and yes, even the parrots. And we shared one final sunset together in our new picnic area. I had the dream day, just soaking in all the animals, throwing sticks for the dogs, giving the horses one too many sugar cubes, with my 2 birds perched on my shoulders. I was truly having my Snow White moment here. The sun set slowly over the ranch, and it felt like the perfect ending to 200 days of chaos and adventure. Off I went. I jumped straight into work outlining my plans. Or at least I thought that was the idea. I brought all the animals out to celebrate the end of my 200 days in the last video, and I'll admit it took nearly the entire day to get everyone put back. No thanks to my parrots, Jinx and Binks, who very clearly wanted to return to the jungle instead of going into the cute little cages I built for them. Even though it completely ate up the day, I have no regrets. Getting that peaceful moment at the end of my last video with the whole crew was 100% worth it. Day 202 kicked off with a whole lot more productivity and excitement than the last. When I went to check on the horses, I was greeted by the filly that had been born in the previous video, who had apparently decided to grow up overnight. They grow up so fast. First things first, a name. You guys left so many great suggestions in the comments, and since she looked so much like my late horse Bambi back in my first 100 days, it only felt right to honor that. So her name is Fauna. Unfortunately for me, before I could even pick her final coat, I realized I was once again completely out of redstone and lapis, and you know what that means. It was time for the recurring segment in my 100 days videos. I put my mining boots back on and headed straight into the deep dark cave system in search for the highly coveted lapis and redstone, the same caves that took my first pop pebbles in the last 100 days. Determined not to repeat history, I made sure all the dogs were armored and set to retreat from monsters if things went sideways. Thankfully, these extremely talented ore sniffing pups saved me a ton of time. By day 2 of the mining adventure, I already had all the lapis and redstone I thought I'd need. By the time we made it home, the whole endeavor was officially a success. Not just because I had lapis and redstone to spare by the time I finished cycling coats, but because everyone made it back alive this time. No burials here. My goal for these next 100 days is to not let any of the main cast die. I ended up choosing one of my custom coats for Fauna, a buckskin paint as a little homage to Bambi's buckskin coat, with Willow and Phoenix's pinto patterns mixed in too. Available on the Cosmic Equestrian Ko-Fi store, so you can have a little Fauna of your own. The next day, I started training the newest member of the herd. I took her into the round pen, first to shake out some wiggles, and wiggles she definitely had. After that, we headed to the dressage arena to work on some flat work too. Unfortunately, the session did get cut short because storm clouds started rolling in, and riding a greenie in a loud thundering storm, yeah, not exactly a winning combo there. Spurred by the storm interrupting my training session from yesterday, Day 207 was a better day than any to finally begin undertaking my first and possibly biggest, scratch that, definitely biggest and most daunting project, an indoor arena. No more training sessions ruined by minor but totally annoying inconveniences like rain. We set out for a day of tedious resource gathering, and gather we did. The arena was going to be huge. I got a little lost in the plot and didn't realize the sun was setting. It wouldn't be a 100-day cosmic equestrian survival challenge if I didn't get blown up by a creeper at least once. After a couple minutes of shut-eye, I set out to find Chip again and all of my resources before they would despawn. Last night's creeper incident had booted me back to base, and retracing my steps felt impossible. Panic was setting in. Chip was out there somewhere in the wilderness, fending for himself. But then, I stumbled across some horse poop. Something I never thought I would be so happy to see. A wave of relief washed over me when I finally saw Chip's little face poking out from behind a tree. Rested and relieved, I decided to brave the wild once more in search of even more resources for my ridiculously ambitious indoor arena. There would be no turning back now. By day 210, I felt confident I had collected enough sand, wood, iron, and every random bit and bob I could find to complete the project. Come morning, I scoped out the perfect spot for the new indoor facility, by my dressage arena, right in the heart of my training oasis. Excited, I jumped the gun and thought today would be the day to lay the foundation, only to realize the ground wasn't remotely flat enough yet. Alright, bear with me because the next few days, what words to use? Underwhelming, dull, unremarkable, lackluster, uneventful. I'm running out of words here. And oh yeah, as boring as it gets, terraforming and flattening land has got to be one of my least favorite things. But finally, on the beautiful day 215, I was able to roll up my sleeves and actually begin the indoor arena. First step, laying the sand foundation for this colossal undertaking. Okay, technically I started laying down the footing, but it took the entirety of the next day as well just to finish this tiny step. Still, progress counts, right? When the sun came up, I had a sobering realization. This project was going to take forever, unless of course, I devoted all 20 minutes of my Minecraft day to it. I needed to work around the clock, so starting on day and night 217, that is exactly what I did. No breaks, just indoor arena, indoor arena, indoor arena. Another full day of building and another full night of building. At this point, I was basically an overworked construction worker who occasionally was interrupted by wandering monsters. More walls, more roof, more placing the same block over and over until my brain turned into cobblestone, and until the monsters showed up once again to protest my progress. But naturally, I kept building. Day, night, repeat, and... You gotta be kidding me. Where are my guard dogs? Oh, there. Then, back to the walls, and wowee, was this taking longer than I ever anticipated. Like, hours long of endless wall building. By some miracle, on day 222, I finally finished the arena walls. I even carved out spots for windows to let a little natural light in. A rare moment of victory. I was so happy, in fact, that I didn't want to squander it by working myself into exhaustion. I needed a break. A vacation. A tropical one. Saddling up Phoenix, we set out to relax and clear my head, and wouldn't you know it, my mind got a little too clear, and suddenly a brilliant, however completely unnecessary, idea popped into my head. An aquarium. What's better than a tropical getaway than bringing the tropics home? So I set off in search of a warm ocean biome, but getting there was not easy. By nightfall, I had to set up camp and tie Phoenix to a tree. Morning set in, and Phoenix gave me some serious side-eye as I tacked him up once again. I had used up all our pacté as I didn't think this would be quite so long of a journey, so he was a little hungry, and he did not let me forget it. The journey took a lot longer because of Phoenix's constant outbursts, but even so, we stumbled upon a warm ocean. I plunged in, buckets in hand, and captured as many tropical fish as my poor Minecraft backpack could carry. I also came upon some really cool creatures that I had to do a double take on, like this incredible whale. Back home, feeling completely rejuvenated, I built a quaint but fully functional aquarium. My tropical friends were released inside a mini ocean all their own. Smaller than the real thing, sure, but blissfully unaware and perfectly content. Welcome, Blub, Glub, and Bloop to the family. However, the fun could not last forever, because at the crack of dawn on day 226, it was finally time to face the thing I'd been aggressively avoiding for the past week. Actually finishing the indoor arena. No more stalling, no more one more side project, just me and an absolutely horrific amount of roofing. The space was massive and it was going to take a hot minute. From the ground, it didn't look so bad, but I wanted this to be a very intricate roof. Pip and Poppy watched from below, probably judging my life choices, as was I. Day 228, it rained. Of course it did, because nothing says efficient construction day like trying to build a roof while everything is gray and miserable and wet. Boots was staring out into the rain like she was in some sort of sad indie film. By this point, I had pulled 3 consecutive all-nighters trying to get the roof done as quickly as possible. The phantoms showed up to remind me that sleep is in fact mandatory. I was getting dive-bombed while balancing on the roof, swinging my sword like the exhausted gremlin I had become. Somehow though, I survived the night. And then it was done. The roof was finally finished. I stood back, looked at it, just taking it all in, and genuinely couldn't believe I'd covered that much space without falling off once, mind you. The arena was officially enclosed, but I didn't want to slow my momentum because the moment the roof was done, I dove straight into interior detailing. The next couple of days were all about making the arena really come to life. I decorated the interior, added flower boxes, removed pests, hung letters, and added some little details here and there. The next day, I created lounge rooms and added cozy couches, books, and a small awards shrine with plenty of room left for all the ribbon trophies my horses and I are definitely going to win. To really round things off, I wanted something dramatic. A massive chandelier. I put scaffolding all the way up and then promptly kept falling off repeatedly. I didn't die though, which honestly felt like an achievement. Absolutely worth the emotional and physical damage though, because it really brought everything together. With the foundation and decorating complete, I stepped back into the arena and immediately realized how huge it felt. Like echoey, very empty feeling. I paced around for a while, pretending I had a plan for the space before accepting that I absolutely did not. And that was fine, so I just started building a bunch of different jumps and hoped that tomorrow the space would come together. This marked the day I stopped overthinking and just started placing jumps to build out my show jump arena. 1 jump turned into 2. 2 turned into an entire training line. It wasn't perfect, but it was becoming something, and it was way more exciting than just a pit of sand. So after a little bit of trusting the process, soon enough it all came together, and at the end of the day, I was incredibly proud with how this whole indoor arena turned out. It was time. The arena's maiden voyage. And there was no question who would be first. Willow. My first horse and icon to my 100-day survival series. We took our first laps, then our first jumps, and the space just worked. She was flying, the arena felt unreal. By the end of the session, I was honestly a little shook with just how close we were to maxing out our bond for good. With the indoor arena officially behind me, life started to feel normal again. No looming mega builds, for now at least. I also went to check on the mule-donkey duo, Eeyore and his daughter Winnie, who had recently gotten a serious glow up thanks to the realistic mule and donkey genetics mod I recently installed. Just for fun and maybe a little silliness, I decided to take Winnie into the indoor arena and see what she had in her. And listen, she didn't clear every jump, but she tried. Without any bucking, no dramatics, she was shockingly skilled. And I was just sat there in utter shock. I mean, if this were one of my swim horses, I'd probably have eaten the dirt like multiple times already, but hey, you know, maybe the mule was the true show jumper all along. The next day was peak Minecraft ranch maintenance. I handled farm chores, respectfully obtaining materials, sorry guys, fed animals, and decided to spend some quiet time fishing in my lake. But before casting a single line, I enchanted my rod with Luck of the Sea, because if I was going to relax, I was going to do it efficiently. And it paid off, because treasure started rolling in. Wow, a single strand of string. Definitely worth it. Feeling inspired and maybe a little too confident, I decided it was finally time to tackle the centerpiece I'd been dreaming about for ages. A huge fountain at the heart of the farm to really tie everything together. I started carving out the space, quickly realizing that this was not about to be a one-day job, because is it ever? And yeah, day 240 confirmed that. The pond excavation alone took forever, and hauling materials back and forth made me question my life a little bit. I also added benches around the edges, so it would become the farm's coolest and newest hangout spot. Another day began, and things finally started coming together, adding little touches here and there. I also put the rest of the fish in from my tropical adventure, stole the cutest little frogs that I found leaping around the lake, and the pond came alive. So, welcome to the heart of the farm. I think easily one of my newest favorite spots. After all that, it felt good to return to something familiar. I spent the day doing chores with all 5 horses, grooming them and giving everyone some extra attention. I even picked apples from the orchard to use as treats, which honestly felt like a wholesome ranch owner moment I really needed. Then came tack creation day. So for the boys, I spent the entire day crafting Western breast collars, bridles, and saddles. It was surprisingly time consuming getting the resources crafted and figuring out all the recipes, but fashion definitely matters here at the Cosmic Equestrian Center, and they need to represent. Naturally, the mares weren't about to be left out, so day 244 was dedicated entirely to creating matching tack sets for the 2 girls. By the end of the day, my storage was questionable, but the horses looked absolutely impeccable. On this beautiful, sunshiny morning, I decided to do something a little unhinged. I bred Eeyore with a horse that, quite unfortunately for itself, wandered into the valley all by its lonesome. With the genetic donkey and mule mod, the outcomes are way more interesting, so I just kind of wanted to experiment and see what we would get from this paint horse and Eeyore. We went full mad scientist, and somehow it worked out. Meet the cutest new addition to the farm. I think she takes the cake as one of the cutest animals I've ever bred thus far. I mean, her paint markings are so adorable. Her name became Rue, and she immediately hit it off with Winnie. They were so cute together. With the ranch thriving, I realized something here was missing. I had 6 stalls and only 5 horses. Unacceptable. So it was time for one last foal to truly round things out. I bred, once again, Phoenix and Willow, hoping luck would stay on my side and that we might just get another fillies. Whilst anxiously awaiting the new little arrival, I couldn't just sit there and twiddle my thumbs all day, so I decided to do something that had been on my to-do list for a while. My chests and backpack looked like it exploded, so I finally forced myself to sort everything. I checked on Willow, who was once again very pregnant. Then I checked on our little Rue, and guess what? She had matured into a gorgeous paint mule. After many attempts, I tamed her and took her for a little spin. Now my girl Winnie had officially gained a full mule friend. Amidst one stormy morning, I went out to take care of the horses as usual to find that the little foal had arrived. So I held my breath, crossed my fingers, checked with a vet check bag. It was indeed a little filly. We were officially 3 for 3. What absolute luck. I just admired her palomino coat that resembled really closely to her mom. Before deciding to name her Fern, balance was officially restored. I crafted all her tack immediately, gave her her own little tack box, and settled on her color theme, green, of course. On day 249, I discovered something that had apparently existed this entire time. Desensitization bags that would allow for training the horses as foals, so the first ride would be hopefully less chaotic. Well, of course I crafted one and immediately started preparing Fern for her future undersaddle training because starting early never hurt anyone, right? Wrong. I got kicked in the head multiple times, but still progress prevailed, and soon enough she gave absolutely no mind to the desensitization bags. The following day was slower and quieter. I continued training with Fern, mucked out the pastures, and handled chores until I was absolutely exhausted. But it was the good kind of tired. The kind where everything feels just right. Cue the next day, and when I was going around feeding grain to the mares, I opened Willow's stall to find it overcrowded with 2 fully grown horses. So I pulled out my abundance of redstone and lapis I still had, yes, and cycled through coats until I landed on one of my custom designs you can actually check out for yourself on my Ko-Fi shop, along with any of the other coats you might like on my swim ponies here, because they are all my custom designs. Anyways, watching her fully mature felt incredibly full circle. After everything I'd built, survived, and emotionally recovered from, I realized something kind of grim. I hadn't actually focused on my horse training in a while, all the hours grinding on creating state-of-the-art training facilities, and I'd been neglecting them. So, while tending to the farm, I decided 1 horse a day for the next week. Pure training, bonding, and seeing how far each of them could go. Starting with the youngest, which of course meant Fern. She still had that baby mentality, so I skipped the jumping entirely and brought her into the dressage arena instead for some flat work. As I really didn't want to turn her first real training session into a panic spiral, I took her to the dressage arena and did a quick desensitization session where I briefly got kicked in the head, but was a minor concussion going to stop my overly ambitious self from training this greenie? Absolutely not. And honestly, she surprised me a little bit. She was curious, kind of wiggly. There were no doubt a few moments where she absolutely tested me. Sun stops, dramatic side eyes, things of that nature. But I do think the desensitization training she had as a foal made a huge difference for her overall demeanor as an adult. Next was her sister Fauna, who was more than ready to graduate into something new. So I introduced her to show jumping for the first time, fully expecting a chaotic, slightly unproductive session. She surprised me by coming in bold, confident, and honestly a little too brave, dare I say. She had a couple, that was close moments, but by the end she was locking onto those fences like she had been waiting for this her whole life. Day 255 was all about my very first horse, Willow. We didn't need an arena or jumps today. We did go on a full gallop around the rim of the valley, just the 2 of us, and somewhere out there we officially became best friends, fully bonded, no more levels to gain with this girl. It was a quiet, peaceful moment, and honestly kind of emotional. I mean, this horse has been with me through everything, and now she is officially at her peak. Forever horse status has been unlocked. Now, instead of working on training her, I can just saddle her up and truly enjoy my time with her. Then came Phoenix. We were jumping in the outdoor when it hit me. Something felt off, too quiet. And that's when I remembered my pillager neighbors were gone. There were no arrows flying past my head, no rude interruptions mid-training. I mean, I'd always thought I hated them, but deep down, I think we had an understanding, like some sort of appreciation for each other. Well, I mean, I kind of them all and burned their home to ashes, but that's not important. Anyway, that's when I also realized training Phoenix without being shot at was actually incredible and very productive. He was bold, fiery, and locked in. The next day, it was time to take out my most trusty adventure horse, Chip. And let me tell ya, it really was an adventure. We traveled across all kinds of terrain, weaving through obstacles and just taking in everything the world had to offer. I was completely shook when we stumbled across a small hyena. Somehow, she didn't decide to make us her next meal. Instead, she actually trusted us enough to curl up right then and there and take a little midday nap, which honestly, probably one of the most adorable things I've seen this far. And as if that wasn't wild enough, later on in a mountainous region, we spotted a wild cat. My guess was a cougar sitting majestically on the mountainside. I chose not to approach it and let it be, just quietly sharing the moment as it took in the sunset right alongside us. Last, but absolutely not least, was Rusty, Chip's twin. We took things into the outdoor arena for some pole work and jumping, and wow, this horse is insane. Where Phoenix is athletic and Willow is grace, Rusty has got the best of both worlds. He took on all the jumps like a pro. By the end of the session, it just felt like all of our training clicked into place then and there. A perfect way to close out this horse training arc. Now, the fun was officially over. No more victory laps around the arena or playing with ponies. It was time to start building again. This time, though, not for horses, but for people. The ranch needed some sort of guest house, something perched high above the valley with a balcony so you can just stand there and dramatically stare into the distance. I spent the day bouncing between forests, collecting the exact types of wood I needed, grabbing iron along the way, repeatedly telling myself this won't take that long. Famous last words. With my inventory absolutely packed and my optimism still intact at this point, I returned to the hill I'd picked for the guest house, and that's when I remembered a very important detail. The hill was not flat at all. So instead of building, I entered my least favorite Minecraft era once again, terraforming. Construction officially began once the site was buildable. The first walls went up, and for a brief, beautiful moment, I thought, oh wow, this is actually going really well. This shouldn't take long at all. That moment lasted about 12 seconds. A storm started brewing, I misplaced stairs, put windows where doors should have been, and accidentally built half the house facing the wrong direction. For my balcony, big whoops. But nonetheless, day 262 marked some real progress because we finally got the main foundation built, plus the roof, and apparently I'm cursed because anytime I attempt to build a roof in this world, the universe decides it's the perfect moment to start raining. But after a painful amount of trial and error, the foundation finally came together. With the structure done, I shifted into exterior decorating mode. Lanterns, lots and lots of flowers, making it all cottagecore and cutesy to fit in with my world. When I finally got to step out, take it all in from the outside, it was all completely worth it. Peaceful, scenic, however, not yet finished. So interior decorating began, and I immediately spiraled. The space felt too big, then too small, then too empty, then too cluttered. I rearranged furniture approximately 1,000 times. Beds were moved, tables were moved, everything was moved. Eventually, I did find a cozy but functional aesthetic for the house. Then came the final touches. Plants, lighting. When I finally stepped back, the guest house was done. Sitting high above the ranch, watching out over everything I had built. For me, it didn't just feel like a house. It was proof that this world wasn't just about surviving anymore. It was about creating places that were meant to be enjoyed. Standing on my new balcony, looking across the valley, I had this very smug realization. I now had a show jumping arena, an indoor arena, a dressage arena, a round pen, pretty much a whole equestrian training retreat. And yet somehow, I was missing one of the most important, dare I say funnest parts of horse training, a cross-country field that should be full of natural jumps spanning across the wide fields of the valley. So that was my next task. And this would have been no problem if I had any space left. I had big plans and very little room. But with a little clearing, I was going to make it work. Turns out, you don't just decide to build a cross-country course and it's done in a day. Thus, my crafting table became my very best friend. Sorry, Pip. Which meant 2 days of grinding materials, indecisiveness of which jumps to actually utilize, crafting endlessly. With all the pieces of the puzzle ready, it was finally time to start laying out the course, and this is where things really started coming together. Even though everything was contained to one field, one small field, might I add, fitting all the jumps in meant doing some very careful planning to make the course actually flow. So I mapped out the best lines, figuring out where each fence should go so the turns would make sense at speed. To save time running back and forth, I recruited Fern as my assistant for the day. Not only did it give us some bonding and training time, but she also became my personal transportation from one jump location to the next. Then it was time to build the water crossing. Every good cross-country course, of course, needs to have some sort of water element. So I carved out the water feature and shaped a proper bank leading out of it, turning it into a real cross-country style obstacle. But eventually we did get to the good part, which was of course placing all the fun jumps around it. To finish things off, I also quickly built a start box to make everything feel a little more official right before you set off on course. But before I could get ahead of myself, the course still needed its finishing touches, so I spent the day placing flags on every single jump, so when the time came to actually ride it, I know where on earth I was supposed to go next and which direction to jump it at. By the end of the day, my quiet little field was starting to look more like it could host a very official eventing competition. Giving the course an attempt on fauna on day 271, I realized it was sort of just looking like a random collection of jumps placed every which way around the valley with no connection or point whatsoever. My solution? Create paths, of course, which sounds totally reasonable. It really wasn't. I started carving dirt paths, connecting every single element of the course, weaving them through terrain. Hills were shaved down, grass was unfortunately sacrificed. My shovel was absolutely fighting for its life. Somewhere around shovel 3, an Enderman decided my personal space no longer applied to it and kept teleporting way too close for comfort while I was just trying to carve my little paths out. I gave it several chances to leave me alone. It did not, so unfortunately, it had to be disposed of. 4.5 shovels later, yes, 4.5, I finally stepped back, dirt flooding my inventory, many broken tools behind me. It was all worth it. Not just a field anymore, but a proper cross-country track. Well, almost. So, putting some of that dirt that was flooding my inventory to use, we packed those paths in, and soon enough, with the last stretch of dirt laid down, I could happily say the course was done. Which meant there was only one thing left to do: test it. I saddled up Phoenix, and together we flew through the course, and in that moment, watching everything I'd built pass beneath us, I realized that every shovel broken, every resource run, every "why did I do this to myself" moment was completely worth the grind. Next morning rolled around and I came to the realization we had a PETA problem on our hands. My bison bud, Thor, who I may or may not have forcibly relocated from the wild during my 200 days, was looking a little depressed. Poor guy could barely pull a clean 180 in his stall and he had no friends. If this was going to be an elite ranch, it would require elite animal care. So obviously we went on a rescue mission or a kidnapping sequel. So I saddled up Fern for her first adventure out, figuring she'd be the perfect emotional support horse for what was about to become another morally questionable expedition. Shockingly, this was not a multi-day saga like last time. I crossed a plains biome and there they were, a full herd of bison. Having learned my lesson about their enthusiasm for headbutting, I decided on a stealthier approach. I set traps around the herd, carefully targeted a female bison wandering a little little too far from the group. She charged. I panicked. She missed me entirely and stuck her head straight into the trap. Bingo. I carted her back to the ranch under the cover of the night, dodging mobs left and right. With a slightly traumatized Fern, I don't think she will be pursuing a career in adventuring with me anytime soon. By sunrise, we limped back to the farm, mostly intact, and introduced Thor to his new companion. Honestly, it was a little awkward at first, but they warmed up pretty quickly. I decided they really did deserve better than a tiny stall because there was no way to fit these two hunks into that tiny thing. So I gave them the space in the pasture outside of the animal barn instead. With one boy bison and one girl bison now peacefully existing, it was time for nature. And wouldn't you know it, the universe was on theme. One of my bees, Tuz, wandered over from the hive while being sat on my shoulder. Impeccable timing because the birds and the bees. So naturally I grabbed some wheat and went over to encourage the situation, except apparently Thor was in the mood for murder. The second I stepped in, he absolutely headbutted me into oblivion. I mean, I've been killed by creepers, zombies, skeletons, but I have to say, being taken out by my own pet, that's a different kind of betrayal. So after respawning and recovering from that absolute literal stab in the back, I went back out there to try again. This time, thankfully, with no attempted murder. A little wheat, a little romance, and success. Later that day, in the midst of a storm, we had a baby bison, which was thrilling until I realized something horrifying. I had not named either of these two new additions, so the adult female was officially dubbed Frigg, and the baby born right in the middle of the storm became Stormy, of course. Out of all the Minecraft mobs I'd bred so far, this little girl has got to be one of the cutest. With the ranch expanding, I decided it was time to diversify our food beyond farm animal, fish, and whatever's in the garden. Enter Pam's Harvest Craft. I planted lots of trees with a variety of fruits from saplings like pears and peaches. Between dodging creepers, Pip helping by digging holes, it was a little bit chaotic. But by sunset, I felt like soon enough, food was no longer about merely survival. These little saplings were going to turn my humble farm into what is, dare I say, a culinary adventure. Day 279 was perfect. Just a regular schmegular farm day, and honestly one of my favorites yet. I tended the garden, checked in on our straw golem helpers, watched the bees buzz lazily through the air while caring for the animals and checking on a now fully grown Stormy. I freshened up the stables, handed out sugar cubes, and brushed the ponies. As evening rolled in, I also spent time with Pip and Poppy playing fetch in the water, which Poppy absolutely loved. Pip, however, chose dry fur. And then the cats were just sitting nearby, probably silently judging us all. I mean, it was the perfect day. And yet, I couldn't help but miss Pebbles, the pup who started it all. She would have loved water fetch. I like to think she would have fit right into this moment, splashing around with her tail wagging like she'd never left. Little did I know at the time it would be one of my last days of normalcy on the farm. Day 280 turned into a full-on gear crafting day. I realized my horses were technically ready for cross-country, but they were severely underdressed. So I headed into the nearby forest to collect flowers for dyes. What should have been a quick trip turned into me wrestling the wilderness for pigments. Back home, I crafted cross-country boots and cross-country saddle pads for each horse, all in their signature colors. Then went a step further with fluffy breast collars and girths. I wasn't done though. With my leftover dyes, day 281 was all about cozy upgrades. I wanted to make the horses plaid blankets and fluffy halters. By the end of the day, the barn looked less like a survival base and more like it was ready for an equestrian catalog shoot or something. After a long day of crafting, it was finally time to retire back to the house. The second I walked in, I was greeted by the most unwelcome visitor possible, an Enderman. Naturally, I panicked and immediately backed out the door. After a brief tactical retreat, I came back with a boat. I placed it down, the Enderman wandered right in, and just like that, it was stuck. From there, it was a slightly less terrifying fight, and after a few swings, the intruder was defeated, rewarding me with exactly 1 ender pearl. Day 282 felt different the moment I stepped out into the valley. For the first time, it hit me that this challenge actually had an ending, and that ending was the end. Literally, going to the end to defeat the Ender Dragon, the final boss of this world. But if this was going to be the finale of a horse survival world, then there was only one way to do it properly: on horseback. That's when it clicked. Swem's amethyst horse armor gives horses the ability to fly, which meant if I wanted the ultimate showdown, horse versus dragon, I needed wings. And wings meant amethyst, which meant caves. So I packed supplies, gave Pip and Poppy scented treats so they could help track underground amethyst, saddled up Fauna, and rode until the land cracked open into stone. I tied Fauna outside the first promising cave I found, took one long last look at daylight, and went down into the depths. Day 283 was an all-in mining day. The cave was massive and hostile, with skeletons perched in impossible places, zombies dropping from nowhere, and creepers with personal vendettas. We were all checking every wall and corner for the faint cracks of a geode where the amethyst be, but I had nothing to show for it. I was exhausted and albeit a little frustrated, though the trip wasn't a total loss thanks to gathering some rarities like gold and diamonds. Day 284, we found yet another tunnel leading to yet another cave, deeper and immediately more unsettling. We were going deeper and deeper, which gave me confidence because the deeper the layer, the more likely you are to find amethyst. Going off of pure blind confidence that it had to be down there somewhere, I followed Pip and Poppy into twisting tunnels that somehow felt familiar and a little unfamiliar at the same time. At some point, day 285 simply happened. Time stopped making sense as tunnels looped, dead ends multiplied, and I started second guessing every turn. If it weren't for Pip and Poppy pausing, redirecting, and trusting their noses over my panic, I genuinely think I would have turned back and given up on the whole ordeal. On what felt like the 100th day underground, after twisting through so many tunnels, I was starting to forget what daylight even looked like, but I continued squeezing through a narrow ravine in the cave. And when I turned the corner, there it was, a cracked amethyst geode glowing against the stone. I mined every single shining cluster until there was absolutely nothing but stone left. With my inventory full, we started the long, winding climb back up, and that's when I realized I didn't recognize a single tunnel I was going through. At this point, I was half convinced the caves had finally broken me, and I was making my descent towards insanity. I was wandering aimlessly through tunnels I didn't even recognize when I suddenly spotted a faint glow ahead. Torches. My torches. Somehow I had looped back into a place I'd already been. Then I heard it. A whine that sounded like a dog. My heart started racing as I scrambled toward the sound, digging frantically through a pile of gravel where the whining was coming from. For a second, I was almost too scared to look, half convinced my brain was just playing tricks on me after days underground. But when I looked closer, peering into the murky water, there she was. Pebbles, injured, buried in the stones, but alive. I really couldn't believe it. This was the same ravine from over 100 days ago, the place where I searched endlessly before finally giving up, convinced my very first dog, Pebbles, was gone forever. But somehow, against all odds, this girl was alive the whole time. After all the panic, all the searching, all the time I spent thinking I lost her for good. I mean, we had a funeral for her. She had been down here the entire time, stuck in this cave for over 100 days. I was not moving her, not a chance, not until I knew she was ready to stand on her own 4 paws. So day 288 was spent placing a dog bed, building a small stone shelter around us, and holding position through the night while mobs roamed outside. Pip and Poppy were so sweet, just refusing to leave her side. I stayed with them all night, feeling somewhat guilty about Fauna just tied outside somewhere, probably very hungry, very confused, but I was unwilling to risk losing Pebbles again. So we all sat by while she healed. This was a waiting game, and I was going to play it safe. And by some miracle, day 289, Pebbles was back in full health. Confused, coming out of a 100-day coma, but alive. After feeding all 3 dogs some food for strength, we made our way back to surface. Pebbles breathing in that fresh air. After 100 days of being lost, she was finally home. Later that day, I took down Pebbles' grave with the biggest smile on my face. The girl really came back from the dead, and I was so thankful for it. With time officially against me, although it was worth it to get my Pebbles back, day 290 was all about crafting that amethyst horse armor. So using diamond horse armor and every shining shard of amethyst I had collected on my journey, it felt like holding the key to the finale in my hands. Now, choosing the horse was pretty easy. It obviously had to be Willow. Not only is she the horse I am bonded to completely, but I mean, she's the horse that started everything. This whole challenge, and I thought it would be a fitting full circle moment to have her end it too. So I armored her up, the wings unfolded, and we took to the skies, laughing like an idiot because wowee, should I have done this 200 days ago. Traveling would have been so much easier, but you live and learn. After a very necessary practice flying session, I got the hang of how to use the flight mechanics, as I was gonna need to be somewhat competent with flight if I wanted to defeat a dragon while doing so. Later, I tucked her back into her stall where she would stay until the final battle to make sure she was eating, and so she could rest and get ready for what was coming. The clock was ticking, so day and night 291 turned into full battle prep. I crafted diamond armor, an amethyst sword with ridiculous damage, enchanted everything I could, including feather falling on my boots because flying is fun until gravity remembers you exist, and then spent the night hunting and gathering food for the fight ahead. Day 292 was the point of no return. The day I stopped circling the idea of the end and actually committed to it. I spotted a broken nether portal not far from the valley. With Willow beneath me and her new amethyst wings catching the light, we flew out and repaired the weathered frame. To reach the end in Minecraft, you don't just walk there, you have to go through the nether first because that's the only place you can get blaze rods, which are essential for crafting Eyes of Ender, the item that eventually leads you to the end portal. So I stepped through. The nether hit immediately. Heat, lava, hostile terrain in every direction. I tried to move carefully, bridging gaps, blocking lava flows, and keeping my shield ready because everything here can end a run fast if you get careless. But I immediately got to work tracking down a group of piglins and started bartering. In the nether, piglins will trade if you give them gold. I handed over a few of my gold ingots and waited while they inspected them, hoping for something useful. Not only did I get a couple ender pearls, but eventually one of them tossed me exactly what I needed, a fire resistance potion. That one item changed the whole equation for me. With it, lava and fire wouldn't be an instant death sentence during the blaze fight I was headed for. I didn't rush the search for the fortress where the blazes are. Instead, I spent most of the day just mapping the nearby terrain, but by the end of the day, I still had not found the fortress. Day 293 was the real hunt. Having a better grasp on how to navigate the Nether, I pushed deeper, weaving through warped forests and basalt deltas, dodging gassed fireballs that kept exploding around the cliffs. In the distance, I saw it, the dark underbelly of a Nether fortress cutting across the lava sea. I found a way in and got to work. Blaze fights are never clean, but this time I had an advantage. A fire resistance potion. That didn't mean it was easy though. Blazes still knocked me back, and other mobs were closing in, which kept the pressure very constant. Panic flared up more than once, so I fought very carefully nonetheless. Shield up, step back when things got crowded, have a little bite of chicken. I struck only when there was an opening. Blaze rods didn't drop every single time either, which meant more fights, more fire, and more chances for things to go wrong. But patience inevitably paid off, because by the end of the day, I had indeed enough blaze rods in my inventory. I did not linger, I grabbed what I came for and left that fortress behind, but I had one more piece of the puzzle secured. The Nether wasn't done with me yet though. Blaze rods alone aren't enough, you also need ender pearls to craft Eyes of Ender. Day 294 became a 10 sloop of tossing gold ingots and just hoping that they were feeling generous. Most of the time, they were not. After lots of old pieces of leather and gravel, I ended up walking away with 4 ender pearls. That meant I still needed 4 more to go to reliably find and activate the end portal. While exploring deeper into the Nether, I stumbled upon an area where a large group of endermen seemed to be gathering in huge numbers. It was exactly what I needed. So with some wood I had brought with me, I crafted a boat and started the slow, careful process of trapping the endermen in it one by one. Boats locked them in place, turning a normally dangerous fight into something much more manageable. Through a combination of strategy and dumb luck, I officially had enough pearls to make it to the end. I retraced my footsteps through the Nether, following the cobblestone markers I had placed days earlier. Eventually though, I lost my track, gave up, and built a new portal. I will say it felt very good being back in the overworld and getting some fresh air, but then I kind of panicked because where in the world had I ended up? After a little bit of hiking through the distance, I could see my cherry tree valley. So I wasted no time. This was not an exploration day, it was a crafting day. And the moment I got home, I opened up my inventory and got straight to work. The blaze rods I had fought so hard for were broken down into blaze powder to craft the Eyes of Ender. And soon enough, I had all 12 Eyes of Ender ready. Enough to locate a stronghold and activate the end portal. The preparation phase was officially over. The very next morning, it was time for my final journey. With my Eyes of Ender, I mounted Willow, my trusty Pegasus, taking to the skies so I could follow the trail from above. Eyes of Ender act like directions. You just throw them into the air and it drifts towards the nearest stronghold before dropping back to the ground. Sometimes it survives, sometimes it shatters instantly. Either way, you follow it. And so we did. Willow carrying me quickly over forests, rivers, and oceans. Eventually, the eye rose straight into the air and then dropped straight down. We had located it. So I landed, dug down carefully until stone finally gave way to brick. There it was, the stronghold, buried beneath my world this entire time. After navigating twisting hallways, abandoned libraries, I finally found the portal room. After awkwardly flying Willow down to the room, one by one, I placed the eyes in the portal. And poof! But I didn't step in it just yet. Instead, I set my spawn nearby because if something went wrong, I wanted at least a chance to recover. I lay in my bed that night, anxiously imagining what was to come. Day 298. I entered the end mounted atop my mystical steed. If this challenge was going to end anywhere, it would end with the horse that started it all, Willow, my very first horse in this world. The one who carried me through the earliest days when survival was all I cared about. The one who was there through every single build, every journey, bringing almost every other horse into my farm, including Bambi before we lost him far too soon. She had been there for literally everything. When we arrived in the end, we spawned in this small chamber. And before we even took off, a massive massive shadow swept across overhead. It was my first glimpse of the Ender Dragon. It was a little terrifying, I'll admit, but I felt a little safer with wings. In Minecraft, the Ender Dragon can't be killed until every end crystal is destroyed. Those glowing structures on top of the obsidian pillars constantly heal it. Normally, players build towers or shoot from the ground, but we had wings. So, Willow and I took to the air, weaving between towers, breaking crystals mid-hover, dodging dragon breath by never staying still. It was controlled chaos. Arrows flying, crystals blowing up, the dragon roaring overhead, until it wasn't. We were on the last crystal. We literally had one more arrow to shoot, one more crystal to blow up, and the dragon would finally be vulnerable so we could finish what we came here to start. I was so caught up with destroying every last crystal that I didn't even notice how many times the dragon had knocked Willow or how many times we had passed through its breath, dwindling her health. But with literally just one unlucky pass, one bad angle, one single moment of hesitation, Willow took the hit for me. My eyes were so on the prize that I just completely neglected to check Willow's health. The horse that started everything was gone. I had no choice but to retreat. Back in the overworld, the silence hit really hard. I was in utter shock. Willow had carried this story from the very beginning. But the challenge wasn't over yet, so I made the hardest decision of the entire challenge to bring in yet another horse. I chose Chip. Her son, my greatest adventure horse, the one who would carry his mother's legacy forward. I mounted once more, determined to return to the end and finish what Willow had started. Her sacrifice would not be for nothing. Chip flew in steady and focused, like he understood the weight of what he was doing. All that adventuring I had done with him came in handy as we were pretty well bonded and very in sync. He did not panic when the dragon tore past us. We moved as one, banking wide around towers, retreating before that darn dragon's breath could get to us, hovering just long enough to shatter the last crystal. With that last crystal gone, the Ender Dragon finally lost its advantage. When the dragon finally perched, there was only one thing left to do. I guided Chip down, got off him, heart pounding, sword raised, landing hit after hit, running away whenever the dragon lashed out. It was a messy fight. It was over. The portal opened, and for a second, I just sat there on Chip's back, catching my breath and staring at the empty sky where the dragon had been. After 300 days in this world, we'd gone up against our biggest obstacle yet and came out of it on the other side. And I couldn't help but think that Willow should have been there to see it. She started this journey after all, and she most certainly helped finish it. After the biggest adventure of these 300 days, I did what felt natural, what I do at the end of every 100 days. This time though, it was different because it would be the last time we would all overlook the valley together. I called all the Found family over. Jinx, Binks, Pip, Poppy, Bebop, Binksy, Boots, Phoenix, Rusty, Fauna, Fern. Man, do I have a lot of animals. My heroic horse Chip, and of course my incredible Pebbles, who I never could have imagined being with us for the final day of the challenge. We lined up on the edge of the valley, all of us admiring the ranch below, the arenas, the pastures, the paths worn in from hundreds of days of routines. I looked at it all thinking about the countless hours of grinding, making mistakes, starting over, and learning how to do things better. We brought new life into this world, watched it grow and protected it. We fought for it, sometimes winning, sometimes losing, and in the end, we got to fly for it. And because I have so thoroughly enjoyed creating this world, I am making it available on my Ko-Fi shop so you can download it and experience it in the way I did. This has been quite the journey and probably one of the most challenging but most fun things I have done yet. That's a wrap on my 300 days in a horse survival world. Thanks for being a part of it. It's been fun.